right. So what's up, everybody? We turn my monitors up, guys. So this is episode 64, Artistic Freedom. Got your boy in the house, Joshua A. Farmer.
No, God!
And so this is a special episode because not only do we have the setup up and running, which if you have watched any of the shows, Lele can confirm, and so can some of the behind the scenes people, that getting this stream set up and organized for you guys to be able to watch this the way that it is a lot more work than it seems. And actually anybody sitting in the room can contest, but just looking on camera, I hope you guys enjoy it and have a lot of fun. Hopefully the audio and the video is coming in clear. So episode 64, we got a wonderful guest, and I'm going to introduce him now. So this is Greg Sumii. He's been with us before. Greg is a tattoo artist here in Fresno, California, and actually somebody that I look up to a lot artistically, and have stolen quite a few ideas from just so that I can learn.
Likewise.
Yeah. So you're the
That's
dude.
what we do.
just so everybody knows, you're the guy that, and I think I've actually said this before live, but you're the dude. When I look at your work, I'm thinking how did he do that? And I remember looking at it, studying it, and just being like, it just seems so beyond me and my abilities, that plugging away year after year, looking, researching, doing whatever you can, even asking for advice time to time, and reaching out and taking that route has paid off, because eventually you get to the point where you look back and you're like, I remember when that used to be what would be like a fantasy to be able to create that.
Right.
And when
now
you
you're
start
zipping through it, you know?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
thank you for being that
It's funny hearing you
inspiration.
say that, because I mean, I have the exact same thought when I look at a lot of different artists' work, you know, yourself included.
Wow.
But like, you look at it and you're like, how the fuck can they do that? And then you break it down, and then a couple months later, trial and error, there you are.
Right.
You
It's
know,
cool.
so,
It's really
yeah.
cool.
That's what's fun about it. It always evolves. It's always evolving.
It does, for sure. So I definitely want to say and be very clear with that I appreciate you not just coming on the show and doing this for, I think, the fourth time. We've done a few episodes now.
My memory's crap. I was about to say once.
Yeah. So more than once.
Oh, no, you're right. It's been twice. This is the third time.
Because we did it remote.
Right.
You were
COVID.
Yep. And then
at the shop.
Yep, at the shop, and then now.
So
we've evolved.
we have.
We went to a computer screen to a tattoo shop to now a nice.
This is a rad setup.
Yeah, nice studio.
It feels comfortable.
Good.
It's good.
All right, so here's what we're going to do, guys. If you're on Facebook and you're watching this, I'm going to try to do my best to monitor your guys' comments. But if you're on Facebook and you have questions or anything you want to say, then you're going to have to jump over to YouTube and get the stream there, because that's the only way we're going to be able to see your comments for sure. So if you have questions you want to ask me, you want to ask Greg, whether it's about us, well, I'm always really cautious to say ask us anything personal, because they do. Thank you, crowd, for doing that. But anyways, guys, if you have any questions that you would like to ask me or Greg or both, shoot and do so on YouTube. So if you're on Facebook, jump over there. I'll do my best to check you guys out. I do see on Facebook, we got Race. What's up? Me. I'm also on Facebook watching. That's really cool. Chantel, thanks for being on here. Kat's on here. Mikey, you guys jump over to YouTube. Jump over to YouTube so you can see the stream and we can interact with you guys and we can see your comments coming through. So if you're on Facebook, go to YouTube. And other than that, we'll get right into it. So just so you guys know, if you haven't seen any of our past episodes before, I'm going to ask the first question, and it's going to be directed towards you, Greg. So what do you do, and why do you do it? I know it's so vague, but
yeah,
I know the answer. I just, maybe not all the people on here have watched previous episodes.
Well, the short answer is I tattoo.
Okay.
I make tattoos and I draw on people. I do that because I love it, and I do it to pay my bills and support my family, and I just enjoy meeting different people, I think, too. That's a big part of it, and I know you can relate to that, but I mean, there's just so many different walks of life. There's so many different types of people. It keeps it... It was similar for me in prison, not to keep going back there, but you're just around so many different people that typically you wouldn't probably be hanging out with or be socializing or having deep conversations with.
Right.
And I think that you get more intelligent and cultured from the more exposure you have to different types of people, different intellect levels, different occupations, different just styles, different characteristics, different personalities. Like, the more exposure that you get to that, just the more cultured you get, the more life becomes, I think,
Interesting.
real.
That's cool.
Interesting, yeah.
That's well, it's funny because people ask like, what do you do? Like, you know, whether you just meet someone for the first time or whatever it is, they're, unless you're in the shop, obviously, but if they're just meeting for the first time, like, oh, so what do you do?
Right.
And it's such a, when you're a tattoo artist or a business owner like yourself, the question sometimes seems a little weird. Like it seems kind
Right.
of like, well, what do I do? I mean, what part, you know?
Right.
But yet, like you said, the direct answer is I tattoo,
Right.
but that's not the real answer.
I grind shit.
Yeah. So if you were to say
work.
like, what is the real, like, is there a real answer behind that other than just tattoo? Because that's a big part of it, but is there something more to it, right, than that?
I think as a tattoo artist, like the trade of tattooing, that answer has so much behind it, more so than maybe some other occupations or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm a barista or whatever. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Like it only goes so far, but yeah, there's just so much to it, and a lot of times people want to talk when you bring that up about tattoos, and there's so much other stuff to talk about
Right.
in terms of being a tattoo artist and what you do, what you're exposed to, and people you meet, places you go, things you see.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. And I think one of the biggest parts is for me, like the people, obviously. And this is something, even when I'm like teaching a class or talking to, you know, an apprentice or another artist or really anybody that's especially interested in like this industry specifically that we've been in for so long, is that you're dealing with people, right? This is really true with any business, but in our business specifically, we're with you hands on, literally touching you and dealing with your blood for, you know, the duration of a day.
Right. You're up close and personal.
Yeah. So it's interesting because, you know, every transaction really is between people, whether you're at a store, you're going through a, you know, you're a barista, it doesn't matter really what you're doing. The transaction is going to be between people. But for us, the transaction is between people in like a really obvious, intimate and long duration.
Right.
So that's going to change you as a person dealing with that. So I think that's something that's easy to forget about even when we're doing it, that we do have that opportunity to be that close to people for so long,
For sure.
get to know and build relationships kind of thing.
And see different sides of people. I think everybody, depending on the environment, you show a different side of yourself. So if you're getting a drink of coffee, you're cordial, but you're not going to cross too many lines personal wise.
Sure.
You might say, hey, talk about the weather or something like that. And then that progresses. But in a tattoo appointment, it's similar to sitting with a therapist, I guess. You know, you're long durations of time, and you're usually talking about things you're proud of, or things that are going on in your life, or things that have just happened that are difficult that you're going through. And those conversations kind of take a life of their own, and they just progress. And next thing you know, like, you're getting these very intimate, real sides of people that, I don't know, I feel like they, in that moment, kind of feel less vulnerable, and they share some more of themselves that they might not even share with some of their closest friends and stuff like that.
Right.
So there's a trust element that's involved there, and there's something that I feel kind of like responsibility wise as a tattoo artist, that if you're going to listen and they're going to open themselves like that, like, this is a very personal, private moment that you respect their privacy in that. But it's cool. It's really cool to get to know a lot of different people, and
Sure.
in a way to where it's not like you're going to hang out like all the time. You might not even see them but once every year or so when they
Right.
come by, but you pick up right where you left off. And you're like, yo, so how's your mom doing? Or how's this? How's that? You know? And likewise, they do the same to you. And it feels good anytime when anybody
Right.
cares about you enough to ask, you know, and remember certain things about your personal life. So
True. Yeah. You definitely build more of a family. Like even when I first started tattooing, I kind of hated calling people clients or
Right.
customers for sure.
Right.
Like I don't really like that word
right,
in our
I go to
industry.
clients, yeah.
Yeah. Clients a little more professional, but also making it a family. Like even people that watch this, Artistic Freedom Family, you guys know who you are. I see you guys on here, Casey, Mike, Dambria, you know who you are. But it's really cool to build that, you know, that sort of tribe and whatnot.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say that's the best part. And that's like, if somebody were to ask, maybe actually we'll get into the questions here in a minute, but if someone were to ask, what's something about your job or the industry that you don't think most people see or that people don't know? Like what's something that's not so obvious? I would say it's that we build really, really deep connections with people at a level that's kind of unusual, because it's not like they're our friends that we, you know, met growing up. These are people we met professionally, have become a deep part of our lives. I
Right.
know that a lot of people in the room would also agree to that, because even if it's not between us clients, us and maybe apprentices or other artists, like I've never been tattooed by you yet, but still
We got to do that. Yeah.
That
we
would be
gotta do
cool.
that. I got plenty of space left. So.
Cool. I am kind of running out a little, but not, I mean, there's always room. There's
Yeah.
always room.
I see plenty of room.
Yeah. He's
I'll
like,
I'll
I'll
take
get
an
you.
ankle. I'll take your foot.
Yep. He'll take it.
Actually, I don't really want those areas, but
Yeah.
I'll take them.
They're not the best,
No.
for sure. But I have the back of the calf and I have the inner arm, and I've been saving my back until I'm like a little older, and now I'm a little older. So it's time. All right. So in the comments, guys, if we're not getting to everything, responding to all your stuff, be patient with us today. We're going to have a lot of fun getting to the comments that have already been submitted. And then if you have anything direct, we will do our best to get to them. We do have, Bubba, are you bringing up people that want to be responded to?
I'm looking right now.
Okay. And then also, Lele, can you do me a favor?
What?
Will you look up what the setting is for why the comments are making sound every time they pop on? Did you guys notice that already?
Yeah, I did.
It's really not cool. I've never heard that before. Usually when the comments pop on, it doesn't make a noise. Okay, so here's a couple of questions. Let's get to them. So Greg is asking, what is the first step into jumping from traditional tattoos to portrait tattoos, and how do you get those depths of realism? That is like such a loaded question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, so what's the first step? Okay, let's get specific then, because there's a lot of steps, right? There's a lot of stuff to do. What's the first step jumping into from traditional tattoos to portraits?
You know what? When I read that, it makes it sound like portraits and realism are a level up from traditional, and I don't really see it that way. There's a lot of realism artists where they might be phenomenal artists. Their end product looks great, but their line work doesn't match to a traditional artist line work where they have solid lines, and there's less room for error because those lines are naked and you're just going to shade up or color up into them or whatever. Whereas realism, you can draw a line, and if you're going to like shade up against it, you don't even know the line's there.
Right.
So there's room for
Sure.
for error. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Like traditional tattooing is not even something I enjoy even trying.
Sure.
Because I have, of course, I've done stuff like that, and I still do from time to time, I guess, when we have a walk-in day or whatever. But I'm most intimidated when I do stuff like that. That's out of my comfort zone, and that requires that precision and line work and stuff. So, and there's so many different, I think, visible techniques now. And when I say visible, maybe just to artists, but in seeing drags and seeing different ways of shading, definitely in saturation levels that any artist should be able to notice when you see something that's color packed and it's either blotchy or it might be solid, but you can see these certain little areas that aren't going to heal right, something
Sure.
like that. But yeah, I don't want to get carried away, but yeah,
Yeah.
I don't feel that it's necessarily a level down from realism,
Right.
but it is a completely different perspective at the way that you're looking at your tattoo.
I
when you're doing
totally
it.
agree. I totally agree. And I think that would probably be the first step, is you just have to identify what those differences are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably it, because the precision of traditional work is like super, well, anytime I'm teaching an apprentice, or by the way, guys, if I'm looking over this way, I have an apprentice, Samurai. You can throw your hand in there and say, what's up? There you go. So anyway, if you see me looking over there, that's who it is. The infamous Samurai. By the way, great work today. Maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit. What the hell?
I've heard that like 3 times. I haven't. I have to see this.
We're going to do this. Yeah, that was impressive. But to sidetrack. So what I was saying about traditional, though, is that you're 75% there if you can pull a bold, solid line on somebody's body, especially a nice, solid, say long line or whatever you want to call it, but a nice traditional line.
Right.
You've learned most of it already. If
Right.
you can do that, you're not a week in, you're not a year in. If you can do that consistently, I should say, not a mistake or sorry, it
And
happens
on different skin types.
different skin, and it heals good, and we see
Right.
it later, and it's like, that person's got it. That is not easy. So if you've got that, then you're already well along the way.
Right.
So
you at least have the chops for tattoo.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
But if there was a first step, so since Greg probably really wants an answer, if there's a first step, I think what I would say is, and you can elaborate on this, but you have to understand realism first, right? You understand the practice of, tattooing traditional. So now you're going to have to, maybe not tattooing yet, but in your art,
Yeah.
understand realism. Realism is just a whole completely different thing. just like traditionalism, you know, a lot of people don't realize how many, how hard it is to train to be a traditional artist.
There's rules.
Yeah,
There's rules.
there's
involved.
rules.
There is, and I learned that the hard way with messing around with some Japanese traditional. I took on I was on a buddy of mine, so I was a little safe, but I took on a dragon sleeve, and I work with Rush. You know, this guy's freehand Japanese master. And I thought it looked pretty good, but when you get into it, there's so many rules that are involved. And I'm speaking about Japanese traditional right now, that I never wanted to do it again.
Yeah.
And that was probably the last one that I did.
It's fascinating how somebody could be a master artist at one thing and of course not at another, and really, I want to say despise is not the right word, but really loathe having to do
Right.
as a realistic artist. It's even weird to say that. It took me a long time to accept calling myself an artist, and also took a long time for me to accept even considering myself a realistic artist, because I'm always reaching for that
Right.
thing and
that next level of realism to
Sure.
where you're like, that'll make me a realism artist.
and I'll
if
get
I
there.
do it like that.
Once
yeah.
it looks like a photo on your skin, then people try to peel off because they
Right.
think it's stuck to you. Until then, I've got work to do. But traditional pieces, I'm sure, are very similar in that sense, that same vein.
Yeah.
Where it's like there's still that one, you want it just to meet that sort of criteria. But again, to his point, to his question,
I agree with you in saying focus on the art. My advice would be to put down your machine and spend hours and hours studying photographs, studying other people's pencil sketches, graphite sketches, and maybe in different moments focusing in on different things. So maybe you're going to examine a bunch of photographs and other people's artwork, paintings, whatever, and focus on contrast.
Sure.
You'll look at all contrast. And then another one, you might look at tonal values and light sources and stuff like that. And then another time you might look at ways of rendering depth
Perfect.
and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But I try to compartmentalize and break things apart and then focus and study in one area, study another area, and then bring it all together and then pick up a pencil and start practicing that and practicing what I see. And when I feel comfortable knowing that, okay, I feel like I'm comfortable with how I'm achieving my contrast and my shading and stuff like that, then take it to the skin.
Correct. Yeah, because if you can't do it on paper, you probably shouldn't try doing it on skin.
Right, because what you're doing is practicing on a human at that
Sure.
point, and that's
yeah.
not
You want to
cool.
practice on paper,
Right.
and you want to perform on the
Right.
on the human. So
Right.
yeah, it's probably a lot like surgery in a way. Like you're probably not going to practice heart surgery on a real human, or at least a living human.
There's a lot of bad boob jobs out there. So,
Yeah, that's
you
true.
know.
So
It's
it's kind of
practicing.
similar to heart surgery for sure. I've seen those. Those are terrible. Evan, if you want to scroll to the questions whenever you see one that like really wants to be, or that really should be addressed, wants to be addressed, then let us know. Go ahead and scroll to them whenever you're ready. Casey says, "Hey, Sheldon in the background." Yeah, I think he was. I don't know if he bounced, but yes, he was here.
He did.
Here we go. Kat is saying, are there any types of art you guys want to tattoo, like styles you've never done that have always interested you? I'll let you answer that, Greg. Is there ever any types of art or style of tattooing even?
No.
You've done it.
No,
You've been doing it.
I'm comfortable in what I do. I'm comfortable in realism. I still get a lot of satisfaction in watching it develop and then getting to the end product. And maybe I'm scared. Like,
Okay.
maybe I'm scared of the time that I know that I don't have to invest in exploring into a new style.
Or are you humbled in it in a way?
I'm very much humbled in that, and especially in watching all this young talent surface, especially in Fresno. There's a lot
Yeah.
of it, and watching so many of these new artists trying different styles, which I feel is in part from what's available online and Instagram and Pinterest and all these like there's just so much out there for people to explore and find their niche, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like when we were starting, it was watching other people or artists that we admired or bugging the shit out of somebody and standing over their shoulder watching them tattoo until they told you to fuck off.
Yeah.
And then coming back, you know what I mean? Like that was kind of how I learned and picked up my secrets, really.
Right.
That aren't secrets. Like
Yeah, that's the
I
crazy.
love just to pass them on now.
That's interesting you say that, because I'll be damned if anybody ever comes into my shop and says, I want to learn to tattoo. But before they do that, they just get tattooed by me and like
Right.
stare and watch and learn and like maybe even take some notes or you know,
Yeah.
whatever, like even a break so they can remember what it is. Because that's what we had to do. There was no other option, and people weren't quite as nice. We just had this conversation in the shop this last week. You know, people talking about how the industry is changing, and you know, obviously the culture of it's changing, or I should say, not just adapting, it's evolving, and it's like you said, it's kind of niching out. And I think it's cool. I think it's all welcome. I think
Yeah.
from the shop that you walk into, the dude's a dick, and there's a biker in the back that makes you sit down with,
Right.
you know, grab your arm, sit down. He's going to give you what he wants to, you know, come in, and it's a nice thank you and a hello and a, you know, warm greeting, and it's a nice, you know, professional shop.
Right.
That's the world today, you know, and that's kind of new. So I really think that that's pretty cool to have that sort of differences in I guess the culture of it all. You know,
Yeah.
it's like so.
And
different.
there's plenty of artists that are going to disagree completely with you
Oh,
and be
of
like,
course.
you know, it's about that old school way and da da da. I'm not so much there. I think I'm really geared more towards my clients and giving them a product that they love, and I don't really care if I don't
Sure.
give them the old school asshole tattoo environment. You know what I mean? And maintain that culture, because I don't really feel that I was ever a part of that culture.
Yeah.
Like, I would be lying if I said I was, that I came from that. So
That's interesting. So I don't know if everybody quite sees it, maybe, and actually, I don't even know if we quite see it from the same point of view in that way. There's obviously a culture in the past of the way things used to be. This is kind of a side note, guys. We will get to your questions, but I love this kind of conversation because it paints a picture of a world that literally is fading quickly, if not
Yeah.
probably already gone. But a lot of the kids are going to look at us like the way, this is weird to think. That's not necessarily because of an age thing. Yes, I'm getting old, but
on that note, I respect that culture, that attitude, that arrogance,
yeah,
and I like it when I see it because it's kind of nostalgic for me.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I completely am on board if I go and meet some artist or go and rap with some artist at an expo or something, and they're all about that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And motherfucking everybody and everything. I think it's funny and I think it's cool because to me that's just like you said, like it's a few that are holding strong to that old culture and protecting that.
right.
And I respect it. I do.
I'm the sa-
That's,
I'm
that's not who
exactly
I
the
am,
same
but
way.
I respect it. Like I like it.
I'm in the same boat. So when people say, you know, they kind of talk bad about the industry and the way it used to be, like
Right.
full of criminals and bikers and underground sort of.
Or another
type.
artist. They're like, oh, he's this way and he's so stuck.
Sure.
In it. And I'm just like,
I think it's cool. I
Yeah.
actually always
Yeah.
have, and I think I try to make that clear too. Also to anybody that I'm kind of passing my knowledge down to, is that the industry has its roots, and don't shit on it so quickly.
Right.
Especially as young kids, it's so easy to look at, you know, and this is, we're probably some of the, this might sound really arrogant. I might actually be wrong. I don't know. I've only been alive for 40 years. So during my 40 years, I've seen how some people, as they got older, their work very much clearly was 1990. And then very clear, as they got older, they were a little older than me in the early, 2000s, their work very much was dated. And of course you can't, it would be silly to think that ours and what we're doing won't eventually be dated,
Right.
if it's not already. Somebody's probably watching us right now going, Josh, I already see it. Get with the micro tattoos, man. What are you doing? But I think it's cool, and it's all quite beautiful if you look at it through a long lens of, history and how we get to be part of it. And what I see a lot of on a regular basis is people shitting on, let's say, even world famous artists, even a really weird term to say from, where we come from growing up, that's celebrity artists. That's like just such
Right.
a weird concept, but
especially
normal.
there's so many artists that you see that blow doors on those artists,
Sure.
and they have some Czechoslovakian name, some
Yeah.
Italian, Russian. They're all over the world.
Sure.
Like, and you've never heard of
Unbelievable.
them, and their art blows my mind. I'm like, holy shit. And if you would have put them just 10 years, they would be the most famous artists in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's kind of a way I look at it now too, is if any one of us in this room were doing what we're doing now, even an apprentice to a person who's been doing it for so long, like yourself, if you were to take your work today, what you do today, and jump back 20 years, you'd be the world's best tattoo artist.
Right. I can see that. Yeah.
Like without a
Just
doubt.
how it's evolved.
Yeah, there's no way. Like some of the stuff I'm doing today is, I would say, mediocre in comparison to the world's best. It's like, oh, like that's a whole different level.
Yep.
But if you took what I did today and jumped back 20 years, that's how quick this stuff's changing. And I think
Right,
that
right.
window of difference is getting shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
And so anyway, the young people that are watching, or anybody interested in hearing and learning about this, is really cool when you can look at artists who are really great. And even though they've been doing it for 20, 30 years, you got to understand that that's a different era than now. And to shit on their work and be like, oh, he's not, I don't mind. Everybody loves that person so much. He's not even that good. I've even made that mistake growing up where I saw somebody I looked up to and I saw his work and went, his work's really not that great. But you have to understand where he came from.
Right.
It isn't the same as you starting out now with YouTube and having, information. Even like this is more, we've already spit out more information than was ever available to us when we started. Right.
And with everything that's online and stuff like that, those that don't tattoo have so much more of an awareness of what a good tattoo is.
Oh yeah.
So because they're able to be exposed to so much good tattooing that now they know. Whereas, maybe 10 years ago, someone would think a decent tattoo is amazing, and it really wasn't. You know what I mean?
Right.
So now I just feel they're more educated, and you see that in the progression of shows like Ink Masters and stuff, where they're early ones, they had one or two decent artists and a bunch of shitty artists. But now it's like they're all really good artists, and the people that are watching these shows, they're more engaged, and they're more like they know who's the better artist and all this kind of stuff. Where I just think that there's just a lot of evolving that's happened.
Yeah, I think so too, and I embrace it. I
have to. You have to.
It's a good idea too, because one, you're not going to stop it, and two is, like again, from my position of wanting to mentor people and teach them, coming from that place of thinking abundantly about the skills that I've acquired, and there's so much of it. I'm so interested in passing that down to those that are willing to work hard for it.
Right.
Because we obviously had to do the same
those that
thing.
deserve it.
Yes.
Key word in that. Yeah.
And to see that grow and progress, I think it's so cool. But to see them embrace, it I don't know. I guess it's hard to explain because I always think of it as like parenting when you got little kids. Like you want to culture them into the music and the movies and stuff that you grew up loving, but at the same time they got to do their own thing.
Right.
They have to do their own thing, and that should be embraced. That'd be silly to say no. You can only take this chunk of music or movies or art or tattooing,
right. And that's what you're gonna like. Yeah.
And I think the industry's like that. So we'll get to the next question because I could beat this horse forever. Let's get to Facebook is. Oh no, that's not Facebook. This is YouTube. Sorry. Do you feel like you both are still growing in your abilities? I think we kind of just answered that a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, that's never going to end.
When you feel that you no longer can learn more and you're the best, it's probably time to hang it up.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think that. Yeah, that you're right. You should always be able to learn, and
you should always be chasing somebody or some ability, style, or way that your tattoos look.
Definitely.
I just think
Okay, so Evan, if you can, whatever question you want me to answer, keep it at the bottom of the screen too, so I know that that's the one you're pointing out, and we can do that. Damer says Josh's giving out that 70s gym teacher vibes. She likes my hoochie mama shorts. It's hot, guys. It's August. It's really hot. Okay, so if you find any, Bubba, get to them. But I'm gonna read one actually from Facebook real quick. Oh, Mikey Loney's on. Mikey, go to YouTube. You stop writing paragraphs. Jump on YouTube and you can write your questions there. Yeah, that's funny. Catherine's saying 2 talented artists, so much talent in this stream. Thank you, Catherine, so very much.
Thank you very much.
And Race is asking us, how's it going, guys? It's going really good, actually. It's going really well. It's Wednesday, and I got a bunch of, I wish you guys could see behind the scenes. I got a bunch of rad people in the house and a bunch of good questions from you watchers, longtime listeners, no-time callers. We're going to get to the first question now. So again, Evan, if you see any that you think we should address, just keep them at the bottom of the screen.
You said no-time callers.
Yeah.
That'd be so cool to integrate, though. All of a sudden we're taking calls like live.
I can. Actually, we can take calls. It's totally possible. So you guys should all know that in the future. It's totally possible. What does life consist of outside of tattooing? Hobbies, adventures, etc.
Ooh.
Okay. Maybe you have a better answer than me because mine would just be more tattooing, filming, and for now. That's this year at least.
Yeah, my life is mainly tattooing, but outside of that, it's a lot. Yeah, I definitely wear many hats, and do different things for fun, do different things for other types of work. Not necessarily always bringing in income just for work. I like to have fun and go outdoors and snowboard and go to the lake and stuff like that. But I don't know. You own a business. It's a double-edged sword because you're giving up a lot of that stuff. So
Sure.
a lot of your life outside of this place is still in this place. You know what I mean?
True.
Like if you're not keeping up with social media and all of your posts that you got to do to stay relevant, or dealing with the endless client list of scheduling and stuff, like it's just overwhelming and tiring. So
Is that daily for you? Like that overwhelming, at least a touch of it daily?
it should be, but I neglect it, and I try to set schedules. Like, okay, I got to sit down every Monday morning and work on my schedule for 3 hours, and then I'll realize that I've neglected that for 4 weeks.
Sure.
And it's like I got to go to this thing, and this phone's just horrible to look at. It's just all these people.
I feel like I'm looking in a mirror right now.
Yeah.
No, that's a real thing, and I oftentimes find myself needing to apologize, at least to some degree, to some of my clients who've been really consistent and persistent, and great. I'm very grateful for these wonderful.
And so many are so patient.
So
you feel
patient.
even worse. You're like,
And they're like, "Don't stop it, Greg. I love you. You're so great.
Right,
Don't worry
you're
about
like,
it. Get back to me when you can." But it's been 3 months, just to let you know.
Yeah.
It's like,
Or you see that one and they've used that same exact one and just sent it every 2 weeks,
Yeah.
the same one, and you're like, okay, this is the third time
Yeah.
they cut and pasted that text.
sure.
I gotta.
Yeah, once we figure out the solution to these problems, life will be much different. But I think it's kind of just a constant struggle for sure. I don't think
Yeah.
it's uncommon at all. It's probably very common, especially if you're the owner of the business.
Yeah.
It's going to be a constant battle for sure. So I'm glad you deal with that too in some weird sadistic way.
Yeah. And I purposely didn't get too far into my personal life because I
Sure.
don't want to. Like,
Yeah.
it's just a mess. Like, it's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, there's good, bad, ugly, beautiful. It's just there's a lot behind a tattoo artist's life.
I'm thankful you say that, because I don't think, just coming from me, even Samurai sitting in here, and Lele as well, I don't think they'll quite understand until they start to really be in the position of, like, you have to feed yourself 100% off this for a long time, and then eventually you might have a family. If you have a family, they're going to have to eat too, and then your clients are really going to be pissed because you have other shit to do, and you're going to have priorities and all this juggling. And I really think that if you're growing a business, it's absolutely a full-time, all the time, never ends. Even you have to find, like this right now, right? Our time, we've spent more time, well, really almost all of our time together with our friendship as like in a professional way. And I look at it as cool, because now I'm using the double-edged sword appropriately, because I'm able to grow my business. I'm able to learn from somebody professional that I looked up to for so long, but I'm also able to build relationships that I respect and that make me feel like, well, I'm not completely alone in the madness, I guess. So it's super nice to have.
It's tiring. I mean, because at the end of the day, we're pleasing people, and you can't have a bad week and get in a rut and work half-ass. Like, every single day, your clients are expected to get their socks blown off with this amazing tattoo that you just did. You know what I mean? Like, that's exhausting. It's exhausting to know that you don't. There's no room for anything less than perfection.
Sure.
Like, you can't have a tattoo one day where you're like,
Right. Yeah, I have times in the shop where I'll have somebody asking me a question about, regarding the front desk, somebody asking me a question regarding their tattoo they're on, and then I'm with my client who's asking me questions about what we're doing here, and then my phone will ring and my kids are asking me questions about what they need to be doing, and I literally can't do it. You have to put those parameters down, and that's difficult, because I will be the first person to admit that I'm not maybe I'm not that bad, but I feel like I could do better at the way I respond to people, because I'll let it get to the point where I'll just try to manage it, and then my temper finally starts to show. I don't think it gets too bad. Maybe I could be wrong. No? Samurai's shaking her head.
You're good.
Yeah, feisty. That's not too bad, because inside, I wish people could say this. One of these days, I will take a machine and I will throw it through a window just for fun. I literally, this for therapy.
you're gonna save it to one of those days that you're really mad, so you can get,
Yeah, I'm gonna get it out. I might even just do it in a very controlled environment. I'll just take a window from like a rehab place and
Then
put
you're
it.
gonna need to do it again. You're gonna be like, I didn't quite feel like the way I wanted to feel.
I needed it to be
real,
at work and break a real window that actually has to be fixed.
Right.
But
And throw
there-
a good machine that I didn't want to throw.
Right.
But I was so pissed off that I
Yeah.
threw it.
One of these days, I'll have to actually make that happen, controlled enough so nobody gets hurt. But that's a real thing, and I do. When I first started tattooing full time, coming from construction work, I remember thinking like, I heard so many tattoo artists complain about their backs or their necks or their job or their position. And I remember thinking, I'm never going to complain. Like coming from construction work, standing on buildings in the hot summer heat, carrying metal equipment on metal roofs, like out in the desert. Yeah, I'm not going to complain about air conditioning, soft cushioned seats, a cold fridge, right? Like I'm just
Breaks
not
when I want them, like,
and it's cool. You know, everybody thinks it's cool. Nobody's like super excited, jazzed about you building scaffolding for a 200, foot tall, 10-story building. It's just nobody cares.
It's
not
so
cool.
true. That's the consolation prize from working so damn hard and you're exhausted all the time. And I'll do that once in a while. You know, I'll get off and have a little bit of a pity party and like, fuck, I'm working way too much. And then you realize like, yeah, you're tired doing what you love.
Sure.
Making money, providing, and doing your own thing. And you're not working in a cubicle with some asshole telling you what to do and when to do it. You know what I mean? So there's something to be said for that. And
absolutely.
Those are usually my self-talk to get out of that little pity party.
That's interesting you say that because it reminds me of what something Robert said when we had him on the show a couple of months ago. And it was one of the first things he said right when we got to the during the intro, and he had said it right away, like the tattooing, and I'm paraphrasing, I won't say it perfectly, but basically said that every time I tattoo is like giving a piece of me to somebody.
That's so true.
And
that's so true.
He said it so perfectly, and I think it was episode 40, I believe. Maybe I could be wrong, but anyway, it was with Robert Miranda, and talking to him about that was because I've always looked up to him as well, as
for sure,
same way I do you, and seeing his art has always been not only inspiring to me, but then to hear him sit there and say that, it's like, oh yeah, like I'm not the only one going crazy here, right? Like this is a piece of you. And I think another aspect of that is that we're kind of talking about now is the business is like that too, that your business is going to take a lot of you. It's going to take from you, and it's going to take some more, and then you keep going, and it's going to take some more, and it doesn't end. And then it kind of feels like you're like, dude, I'm going to run out.
Right.
But you just keep going.
Right.
So anyway, that's something I don't think I could have anticipated before I started this, venture right now, owning the shop for the last, almost 5 years now. And it's taken everything that I have.
It's been that long?
Yeah. 2019.
No shit.
Isn't that weird? 2024 we're
weird.
looking at. That's so weird. I know. It is very weird.
I felt like I vaguely remember just recently your grand opening party.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. That was crazy.
Yep. Yeah, it wasn't it doesn't take long for it to just fly right by. And now we're in a new world, 2024, everything's different.
COVID didn't help like that. There's a 3-year gap that went by in 1 year. You know what I mean? Like when you think about it, you're like, dang, that was 3 years ago.
Yep. Very long time ago. Evan, is there any comments on there or any responses? Yeah, you're gonna have to get in the comment section, Samurai, and put that in there. Have you ever had complaints on tattoos in your prime? I don't know if that's the right way to put it. Have you ever had complaints on tattoos in your prime?
Like your peak.
In my peak?
Yeah.
I don't know
your
what the
best performing.
Like when I did my best, when I feel like I did my best.
Yeah.
I guess that's just a question I don't understand because I've never done that. My best, I don't know.
Wait. So, basically, at the peak, when you're doing really well as a tattoo artist, have you ever had somebody criticize your work? Is that
any complaints about tattoos in your
believe
prime?
that's
So I get like when you're doing really well.
Well, I think I criticize my own work every single tattoo, every single time. Like you look at it and you're like, there's some elements that you definitely know you did that. Like you did a good job there.
Yeah.
But every single tattoo, I'm looking at what I need to do different the next time. And I mean, that's a kind of a cliche thing too. And it's a true cliche is, you're your own worst critic.
Sure.
But, I think, I don't know, as somebody that does artwork on someone else's skin that they wear for the rest of their life, there's such a different gravity and heaviness to that feeling of criticizing your work every time because fuck dude, you just gave that to somebody as a gift for them to have for the rest of your life, and there's a piece of that you're like, ooh, I wish I would have done that differently.
Yeah.
I mean, they never know, like, and most other people, even another artist, might look at it and be like, dude, that's phenomenal, but there's always those things that you just, like the elephant in the room, you're looking at it and you're like, oh, that one fucking area right there.
It's funny you say that because although I do believe we're our own worst critics, I think it's like multi-layered. because there's like this inception moment that happens for me time to time where if somebody's learning tattooing, right? If I'm teaching somebody the fundamentals, they're right at the beginning of, the first year or two into their career, and they nail something really well, something simple, something small, something very much, a beginner sort of feat, and that the customer they'll cry, or they'll look at it and just be like, oh, like I could cry right now. And they're ecstatic about it. And then I'll pour my heart and soul, and I'm not diminishing that person's efforts at all.
Right.
But I'll pour my heart and soul into something, and that person, when I'm done, lo and behold, they won't tip. And I'm like, whatever. I don't ask for it. I don't make it happen, but they'll leave and they're like, yeah, man, it's really cool. Thank you.
But even a better, like, whatever, tipping, cool. Yeah. The biggest tip is their reaction.
Dude, for
and
sure.
That's so difficult when you do a tattoo that you've spent 6 hours on, you're actually proud of, and they get up, they're like, cool, you can wrap me up. And they're like, did you want to take a picture of it? Do you want to look at it in the mirror? They're like, nah.
Like, no, I trust you.
Yeah, exactly. I trust you.
No, I trust you.
And there's just
like,
no
what?
enthusiasm. And you're like, cool. I must have not done well on that one.
You know what I think it is? We were just talking about this earlier before the show started. I think it's something. It's kind of like the same scenario of really attractive people, right? You meet a really attractive person. You don't necessarily want to tell them, and I don't know if this is exactly true, but
oh, I see. I hear what you're saying.
You're like, oh, they're confident.
Right.
They hear it all the time. Maybe it's something like that.
I think sometimes it could be, but sometimes it is. But I think most times it's not, because I don't know. Those walls are down. They've chosen you.
Yeah, and they've been with you for 6 hours today.
Right. Yeah,
they just told you about their cousin who died.
Right. There's no need for them to flex like that.
Jeez, I know. I don't understand either, because then then you start really connecting with them, right, on a personal level, and then they leave and they're like, thanks, man.
Right.
And I'm like, did you see what I just gave you?
Right.
Like, that thing was awesome.
Yeah.
I can't even say any names because they may be watching, but there's pieces I've done where I'm like that. And now, granted, there are plenty of times where people obviously have a very real response to their tattoo, and I guess it's all real. It's all a real response. But I'm always looking for, like, I'm gonna pour my heart and soul into this thing, and when it comes out, I'm like mind blown. There was this Viking face I did recently, and this guy was like just ecstatic. Even when he came back, he's like, man, I can't go anywhere without people,
Yeah, stopping me everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm a celebrity now, and it's hearing those things are great. And I think those ones make up. Like, there's so many more people that show that type of enthusiasm that makes up for those that don't.
You're right.
And that used to bother me, and bother me is a bigger word than it needs to be for myself. It used to get to me a little more younger in my career, but now not as much. And I just realized there's a lot of different personalities too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I do know the ones you're talking about, where you guys are vibing, they're talkative, everything's good, and but the tattoo, the one moment they should be extra, they're like, cool, man.
Sure.
You're like, all right.
Yeah. So any of you guys watching out there, not my clients, but anybody out there that's been tattooed, message your artist. Message your artist if it's been years or weeks or days, or you're getting tattooed right now watching this. Message your artist and be like, man, you are rad. Just wanted to say thank you. Because it feels good. It does sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, it's nice. Toot our horn just a little. I don't mind asking for that. There is a question on Facebook that I'm going to read, since I can't always get to all these because it's not streaming live for us. So Mikey, thanks for asking this. Do you ever look back from the start and contemplate where you are now?
Wait, say that again?
So I think what he means is, like, do you ever look back on the start and reflect on it based off where you are now? Like, do you ever kind of compare that kid or person to, like, just kind of look at that? Because I have to do this regularly to remind myself, dude, you're doing all right. Because if I'm measuring myself off my, last year or 6 months ago or a couple weeks ago, the progress is incremental. But if you're going back far enough, like, I just showed the girls in the shop recently a picture of a tattoo that I did. Dude, it's worse than anything they've done. And I mean it. And I was proud of that.
I have so many of those. Like, I do.
Yeah. I was so proud of it. Like, I was like embarrassed to show it, because it's like, I know exactly the responses, but I was also excited because look what they get to do.
Right.
And look what we can do now, because, man, it was not good.
Right.
And there's a lot of those.
And the you now sees it that way. The you then thought it was pretty good.
Dude, it was cool.
That's the funny part about it.
Yeah.
You're like, damn, I used to really be proud of this tattoo. This is some dog shit.
Yeah. No, yeah. I showed one of the girls in the shop a lettering that I had done, and it was so bad that I almost didn't want to show her. I'm like, this is really painful. She's like, when was it? I'm like, don't worry. It was like 15 years, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Before she was really even born, or at least before she could even imagine tattooing. But yeah, that was pretty intense. But looking back at the past and seeing what we can do now, it's like, it's a really nice reflection to be able to be appreciative of, you know, what you're able to accomplish. Because, you know, one thing that I don't believe in is, like, I don't really like the phrase self-made. I know it's pretty popular and it's very cliche, but I don't believe in it. I don't think it's real. I don't like to look at anything that way, because we're not self-made, man. We're standing on the backs of giants, and hopefully one day. And I think the giant overall is really an accumulation of lots of moving parts and people, mostly people, that we're able to ride this wave with, you know? And so like, if you get really good, that's kind of to my point I was trying to make earlier a little bit, is look back at the past. It's easy to look at someone and try to shame them for their skill, that, you know, oh, old man, get out of the way kind of thing.
Right.
Dude,
You don't know where they've come from. Yeah.
Yeah. And they've set that precedence so that somebody else could, you know, benefit from it, and so on and so forth, until eventually you're able to do what you're doing now. Maybe even 2-3 years out of the gate, you're still able to accomplish something, again, that 20 years ago would be possibly the world's best if you could do that then, but you're doing it now in the third year. And that's
I do that often, actually, especially when I'm just feeling shitty about myself or shitty about my art or whatever. Then I have a lot of shittier life moments that I definitely have come from, that help me quickly, again, snap out of that and just realize, like, shit, okay, you're doing good. You're doing all right. Like, you're doing all right.
Yeah, it's actually very useful, because when you're tattooing, again, if you're not a tattoo artist and you're watching this, it may be hard to understand that, you know, it's one thing, like I like to get into photography and videography and set stuff up like this. And, you know, we got Dalen in the background texting somebody, but usually he's taking photos.
He's been snapping away this
He's
whole time.
commenting. Yeah. He's commenting on the stream. But, you know, you got people who can take photos, and all that stuff's a high pressure environment, especially if you have to perform like at an event or something in professional ways. But what's interesting about what we're doing is that it's like one chance, guys, like, here you go. And this is permanent. And there's all kinds of other risk factors that can come into play, as opposed to taking a photo and redoing it and editing it and changing it, or saying, oh, that's good enough. I think in post I could probably make that 100%. We don't get those opportunities. So that makes it very easy to feel like you're not doing as well as you really are.
Right.
And then when you look back at it, you're like, no, actually, we're probably doing all right. And I think that's, again, one of the things that I teach often is, how do you get better at something? You really have to make mistakes.
You do.
But with tattooing, do it on paper, make the mistakes, figure out how to do it on paper, and then you can start to do it on the skin. So practice on paper.
With a lot of things. I mean, shit. I mean, even in fighting, like, you get the most dangerous fighters are those that have gotten their ass kicked.
Sure.
Because you learn what not to do, and you learn how to adjust from that and stuff like that.
Yeah, you got to get your ass kicked.
You have to.
That's a better way of saying exactly what I was trying to say.
Beat that ego down and learn different techniques.
Get your ass kicked. And but what if somebody's trying to avoid that? What if they want to get there? They want to accomplish what you've been able to accomplish.
Then what you just said, pick up paper instead of skin.
Yeah. And if they want to get through it without bumps and bruises, like if somebody says, like, I want to be able to learn what you've done, but I don't want to do all that work. I just want you to teach me now. Just show me, or just get me there now, or just like, you know, like skip all the, you know, the training part. Just show me the nuts and the bolts, right? Just give it to me.
I would say that I want to be a billionaire tomorrow. Same thing.
Yeah, same thing.
Not gonna happen.
You gotta take some blows for sure.
Right.
You gotta get hit a couple of times. You're gonna have to get kicked right in the nuts. That's for sure. For you ladies, maybe right.
I see Gabby over
somewhere
here.
Else.
She's reminding me that I have class at 6 a.m. and yes, I will be there.
Yeah. So Gabriella, don't worry, we'll get him out of here, nice and sober and conscious.
Yeah.
This is probably, it's funny. She's saying you got to get out of here in the air conditioned room, nice, cozy.
Right.
Got a drink next to your side.
She's like, you're probably not going to make it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'll be there. Don't worry. Urshell's also commenting, saying that is right. The enthusiasm is what we look for. As a photographer, I want to see clients light up with delight.
For sure.
Yeah, that's one of the coolest things. When you can show, I love when you do photography and you get a really good shot, turn that camera around and show the client.
Yeah.
And you can
watch
just
their
see
face,
them.
their
They're
expression.
Like, and then hey, hon, come look at this.
Right.
That's cool.
We need really cool. Humans need that. Like, we all need that.
It's excitement.
We need a little.
It's energy.
The dog needs to get patted.
Yes, perfect. Okay. Audra is on here coming from YouTube saying, "Hey gentlemen, what is the one tattoo you'll never forget doing, good or bad? What was it? That you'll never forget." I mean, picking one is always really hard.
It is.
Like one,
Because so many are coming to mind, you're like,
yeah,
which
trying
one do
to
I
sift
grab?
through
Yeah.
them. That's really difficult. What's one tattoo? That's really, really difficult.
I have a lot of ones that I haven't forgotten, but they're sad. It's for sad reasons. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Like a lot of portraits that I've done, and I love doing them. I love memorializing a story and a person and learning about that person that most times has passed. But the kids, man,
Yeah,
fuck me up. Like
those are hard
I get
stories.
teary-eyed sometimes, and they're just heavy. They're heavy, and then you're doing those tattoos. Yeah.
Yeah, that's rough.
So those ones are for bad reasons, I guess. But there's been a few, the whole ashes in there, where you're putting, a dog's ashes or sometimes a human ash, like,
Yeah,
in a tattoo. So those ones are memorable. I don't know. Some
Yeah.
of the ones that are memorable are also the best ones we feel we've done. You know what I mean? We're real proud of it. So
yeah. It's hard to say memorable too because, again, this is me being so spoiled that sometimes I forget this. But I'm doing that weekly. Like I'm week, if not sometimes daily. Sometimes there's a week where 5 days out of that week, I'm nailing stuff that I'm like, this is so cool. Like I
Right.
killed it this week.
have you had the other weeks that are the opposite?
Yeah, I'm like, did I do anything this week?
Right. Like you just go home with your tail between your legs, and you're just like, I need to stop or
Yeah,
take a
what's-
vacation or something.
Yeah.
I need some reset because this is not cool.
Yeah,
Like-
there's lots of those. But when I think about the tattoos that, like to her question, like the stuff that's memorable and why, like I would say the memorial stuff obviously hits you pretty hard, especially when it's like in your from in your side your family,
Right.
or even your friend group.
Sure.
But there's so many, like just kind of bullet pointed like stuff that are memorial things for, clients. Like some of my most memorable ones, I guess, would be like I've literally tattooed, and no disrespect to the family, I won't say names, but tattooed people who leaving the shop to go home didn't make it. And it's like, I'll remember that forever.
That's yeah.
Like I was the last person to
me, thank
spend
God.
that time with this, individual. And so when I first started tattooing, just out of habit, I never threw away any of my stencils, like never did.
I still do that.
And I think it was up until about 3 years ago, so damn near 20 years worth of stencils. I have trash bags full, and
Same,
I'll
same.
never throw them away because some of these people are they're not even here anymore,
Yeah.
and that's a big deal. You
It's when you get that many and you see how many stencils, they're memories. I
Yeah.
mean, you'll remember the client, you remember the tattoo, but you also remember what you were doing in your life at that
Sure.
time. Like, oh, I remember when I did that. I did that when this, and yeah, I always had this idea to publish like a coffee table book
cool.
where all it is just pages and pages of stencils, and it's a book for someone to be bored sitting around and pick up and just flip through and be
Perfect.
like, oh shit, you know what I mean? All these different tattoos.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I have the boxes and bags of the stencils.
that's really cool. What you know what, Samurai, will you do me a favor? Remind me this conversation about the stencils that we kept and the coffee table book at the end, because we're gonna have to talk about that,
Yeah,
because I know how to make that happen, and it's got to
I say
happen
we
for
do
sure.
it. Yeah.
Okay, so Kat is on here asking, do you remember the first tattoo you ever did? I think you have to. That's like losing your virginity. You might not remember the name, but you remember what it was.
I very much do. Yeah.
Bad analogy. Samurai knows her first tattoo. Greg, why don't you tell us what yours is, if you're willing?
Yeah. Mine was in prison, and I was getting these crosses tattooed on my neck, and it was this dude that really wasn't doing a good job at all. And I'm trying to explain to him how I wanted it shaded, but didn't know any terminology. And one of my homeboys was like, "Do you think you can do better?" And I'm like, I don't know if I can do better, but I'd like to try. And he's like, "Well, I'll build a tattoo machine tonight and give you my leg." So we did. He built a tattoo machine and gave me his leg, and I tattooed a weed leaf with like this spiral vortex behind it, and it came out good. And yeah, because of that, and you're in prison, there's a line out the door after that. The
Yeah.
next day, everybody's like, "Okay, I'm next. I'm
Yeah.
next. I'm next. I'm next." But yeah, that was my first tattoo. It's a weed plant.
It's really cool to see your work now, like what you're able to accomplish. And actually, the next question I'll get to in a second will explain maybe what some of those kinds of tattoos are, because you just posted something recently that I didn't see. That all I saw was the picture. I didn't see the headline of who posted it. I just saw the picture first, and I knew it was yours, something you had done. And then I was thinking, like, I bet I'm gonna scroll and I'm gonna see Greg's name, because but it looked like a step up from what you usually do.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Good to hear.
It was recent. It was really, really cool. And you know, I think that's easier for somebody else to see in your work too, by the way, than your own. Like when you look at it, it's
no
you
doubt.
see something
No doubt.
totally different. But yeah, seeing that step up was really cool. And yeah, I guess seeing that compared to like your first tattoo in prison of a weed leaf is really remarkable. That's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
fantastic. That's really, really cool.
It is cool to see the contrast.
So the next, Samurai has a question. Are you going to type it into the live stream, or are you just going to say it out loud?
No, I want to ask it out loud.
Okay. You have to say it really loud. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
What type of needles do you use?
So the question was, what type of needles do you use?
So I use curved mags. All my mags are always curved. I use mostly bug pin, anywhere from as thin as a 0.8, usually floating in a 0.8 or a 10 gauge. I'm usually lining with bug pin 3, like a tight 3, or a regular 3. The regular 3s that I use are pretty tight in and of themselves. I use 5 rounds as well. I usually do my highlights. I'll bring in a 5 liner, and it's kind of a technique I recently learned a few years ago. But I'll just use a liner with my whites and just quickly drag it across the skin, and it gives this stimpling look. But with whites, it doesn't. You don't want to saturate white, because it's going to look all yellowed and blotchy and stuff. So it just gives a nice glowing transition, and then when it heals, they're little white dots that I don't know. I feel like it. Have you ever tried to use highlights and then you saturate an area way too much with your whites, and it doesn't look right?
It starts to kill it.
It starts to kill it, and then even when it heals, it's just kind of has a blotchy look to it. Or
Sure.
whatever.
Well, you really think about white in the use of tattooing. It's for us, it's kind of a new thing. I mean, we definitely didn't grow up getting white tattoos. Like
Right.
it wasn't a thing.
Right.
So I think the initial use of it was like, that is so powerful in a tattoo.
Yeah, and you just want to
Let's
do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
then,
you see
can
us
over white for sure.
Sure. And then you got highlights in places that just, because it's cool. It's like, oh, look how that popped out. It's like, yeah, but that effect wasn't necessary there. So you
Right.
got to learn how to kind of dial it down. I've definitely had to learn that, like how to dial that back. And I usually, a lot of times in a portrait, I'll try not to use it at all. And if I have to, it's just for that one spot. Like if it's just that
Right.
one thing to bring attention to. But I've seen a lot of people, and I've practiced it a few times, depending on the person's skin type and tattoo and even skin tone. I'll use a liner, or I'll use a mag for the white, and I'll kind of build it up slow instead of just pack it in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it really makes a big difference.
Most of the time, I'm going to dip in water with my white. If I'm going to do like a dot in the eye for that pure white shine, then I'll just do pure white. But
Yeah.
most of the time, I'm going to dip in my white
Interesting.
and then dip in water it down a little bit, and then I feel more at liberty to blend better without it fully saturating, because it's watered down. So
Yeah. Interesting.
it works, and I like how it settles in there. Were you asking more in sizes or like in brands, or?
No, just more inside.
Yeah,
Size.
and then
I only use 3 round liners.
okay, so that's a style that I very much respect, and I don't have an interest in it because of how much more time I feel that it takes and stuff like that. But Rob blows my mind with that 3-round technique, and I think in the artist community, amongst artists, it's really an impressive technique, and there's a cool factor to that. So I really respect that. Like it's cool, and then it has a very unique look and a very unique style to it that I also like. I just feel like a lot of customers that are paying, unless there's like, I feel like Rob's customers seek him out for that. They know what they're getting, and they're super excited to get it. Whereas a lot of customers, they want a smoother or a different look because they can't appreciate that dot look. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I don't do that. But I think also it's just more the efficiency. You know, like I'm trying to get through a tattoo, but who knows? Like Rob might do them the same
Yeah.
speed. You know, he might be over here watching, being like, "Dude, I do it in the same amount of time you do."
And that's the
Like,
weird thing we were talking about earlier off cameras.
Yeah.
Like how you could know like this is how this works, and you see somebody else just totally break that mold completely. And you're
Right.
like, okay, so you have to get to the point to where eventually you realize there is definitely no one way to do this. There's fundamentals,
Right.
that's for sure, but then the rest of this, man, everybody's going to be so different. You know, some of that could just because they're defiant and then they develop something new.
Mhm.
Maybe that's a lot of times how you develop your style, but
Right.
also too because there's different understandings of the technique. So somebody applies it, it looks a certain way. Like I like to do both. Like it's kind of cool because sitting between you, kind of, in a sense, she's talking about doing the sort of traditional 3-round liner stipple sort of
Mhm.
look, that sort of hardcore stippling, but also you can get a nice soft shade with it too if you work it the correct way.
Right.
But then you're doing stuff that's a little more, well, it's a lot more photorealistic. It's a lot softer. It's a lot more graphic, if you will, less grainy, less gritty.
Right.
But
right.
I like to do both.
And I feel like you probably can achieve that with, I think the way that I look at it, and it's probably the wrong way of looking at it, like someone that does the 3-round liner would be like, that's not how it is at all. But the way I look at it is, it's like, if you're going to build a sports car or whatever, and someone's like, here's a screwdriver and a flathead, build the sports car. The other guy's like, well, I got a Snap-on full chest full of all these different tools, all these advanced different machines and stuff. Like, I want to use those.
Sure.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to do it faster and push the limit on what all these different equipment and different needles or machines
Yeah.
can achieve. But there's something that I can appreciate of this person getting to the same place I am using a flathead and a screwdriver, but I don't care to do that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I'm the
Like,
same way. I love handcrafted stuff, but at the same time, I don't always want
I'm trying to be efficient.
Yeah,
and-
just got to get this done.
And I feel self-conscious too. Like I'm limiting myself with my tools. Like I want to use 3 liners to do this tattoo and 4 different mag sizes. You know, depending on what part of it that I'm working on. If I'm going to start doing all this background, just shading behind the portrait, I'm not going to use my 11 mag. I'm going to pull
Yeah.
out a 17 or a 21 mag and get through that shading faster. If I'm going to saturate some hair and this portrait has this big amount of black hair, I'm not going to use my 3-round to shade in all that little hair,
Yeah.
you know? But I keep going back and forth. I'll look at Rob's work and he'll do a back piece and there's some saturated ass pieces and he's like 3-round all day long. And I'm
Yeah.
like, fuck, dude.
Yeah.
Like, how'd you do that?
Yeah.
How long did it take? You know?
Yeah, it is. It's amazing to see everybody's different style and technique. I definitely don't believe there's any one way of naturally,
Absolutely not.
but I do think that there's so much you can take from the arsenal of other people's, skills and tactics that you could take and make your own. And I do feel like I'm kind of in that middle camp of, I love doing that same thing where I use a big needle to get through something.
Mm-hmm.
And the client will even look down and go, man, you got that done quick. Like I haven't even got to the small needles yet. So
Right.
that's just background and some shading.
Right.
And,
You're just forming, loosely shaping.
calm
it.
down because
Yeah.
we're going to be here for a while.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, how long? You really think it's going to take 6 hours? I'm like, yep. So calm down.
Mhm.
But I love to use both. I really like big soft needles, but when you can use something small, I'd love to layer them as well. Like get kind of a nice soft gray shaded going
Mhm.
and then take that stippling technique over it, especially if it's like, some sort of material or something that you're trying to do. And you could just kind of run over it in a sort of scratchy, well, get into the terminologies too much and the techniques, but you can create something really interesting by layering both instead of
Yeah.
just sticking to one. And when I learned doing it that way, like I'll get out sometimes 5, 6. And thank goodness for these new machines. It is so nice to not have to have 5 different coils set up or even take them apart
Right.
mid
Just
tattoo.
snapping in different ones.
Yeah, because now I can do it effortlessly and just go for it.
Yeah.
But it is really cool. It sounded like a TV ad or something right now for new machines, but I mean, it is really, really cool to be able to have that because I do remember thinking in the past, man, I don't want to set up 4 machines today. I'm just going to use 2,
Right.
and I'll limit
Right.
myself. But you know what? There was something that I learned from that too, from having that limitation of not just having all the needles and just being able to click them in. It's like it kind of hones in your skill a little more. It drives it home a little further. Where if, like, for example, I didn't grow up having printers or the internet, so my ability to just come up with something on the fly is like,
Right.
it's pretty easy. I mean,
and you're grateful for that. Like you're
Sure.
grateful that you were forced to learn those things, and then now with the technology, you're happy that it's there. Like you'll have these different machines in your shop, stencil machines, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I find myself most of the time doing a mixture, but going back to I love hand stencil. I hand
Yeah.
stencil everything for the most part.
I do too.
Most of my realism, I look at it as a practice run for my mind. Like I sit there, and it sucks because I might take 45 minutes to do a stencil, and my brain hurts when I'm done. And then it's like, okay, now it's time to start a 6-hour tattoo, 5-hour tattoo, you know? But when you start the tattoo, your brain is familiar with the edge of this cheek line, making sure that you tuck it in here, and all these different things that you were working out while you're doing the stencil.
Yeah, it does mean a lot. I
And
totally
the stencil is a
agree.
map. You know, you're coding and mapping is the way I look at it. I don't know how you do your stencils, but I'm sure you have coding, your own personal coding, whether you're doing dots, lines that are more spread apart, they mean this to you. I know like I'll X an area that's pure black.
Sure.
So when I look at my stencil on the skin, you're quick to identify these certain areas. I don't know. It's all about efficiency, I think.
I agree. And I think the only real method to my madness with stencils is just put as little as you need to get the job done, because there's some stuff you just need I call them maps, like road maps.
Yeah.
I just need the general shape right here.
And I'll worry about looking at
all
it and
that other
figuring it out.
stuff
Yeah.
between. I can figure that out.
Yeah. You can over stencil. I will say that. Yeah.
So
you
I
can
try not to do
over-stencil.
that. All right, so we're going to get to the next question, which leads me to the tattoo I was talking about recently. Was most recent tattoo you liked tattooing? I mean, we have to say all of them. I liked tattooing them all. But is there one that recently you did that like really stands out?
I did this elephant recently that I just enjoyed the texture on it, getting in there and just being able to really take my time and develop the texture. And there's a lot of different texture, but of course in the elephant itself it had a lot of texture, but then in the background there's different layers of depth where you have far away silhouettes of trees and stuff. That one, yeah. And then you have water running and rocks and stuff like that. So that one I enjoyed doing. And that was like a three session piece. So
Yeah.
each session you get to see the elephant healed. You're like, fuck yeah, that thing healed great. Okay, now we're gonna drop in the background and drop in this part. So
Right.
yeah, I enjoyed doing that one. I enjoyed how that one turned out.
Elephants are fun
They are.
because there's not just a big. The worst type of shading is when it's just a big, huge, like kids' faces.
Yeah.
So hard because there's no
They're
mile
so
markers.
smooth, and there's so little shading and like contouring.
Yeah.
It's just so round and angelic and smooth and
Yep.
Oh
And then
my
you get to
God.
the elephant and it's like wrinkle, wrinkle,
Right,
wrinkle,
right.
more wrinkles, wrinkles under wrinkles.
I made a mistake. I'll put a wrinkle there. Like,
Yep.
you know what I mean? It's organic and it's
I
loose.
love that.
And yeah.
I feel like you could kind of have more fun with that too, because whether one of the wrinkles is a little bigger or smaller is
It doesn't matter.
really does. It almost
Yeah.
looks better sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So the most memorable was the elephant, you're saying?
That quickly came to mind.
Okay.
Yeah, that quickly came to mind. I know there's one that I did at the expo this past year that was a sneaky Peaky Blinders.
Okay.
So that one I really liked because there was a cool portrait, but there was a micro scene like under it that I was just happy that I was able to render that scene in an area like this big on a wrist, you know?
Yeah.
So I knew going into it that it was kind of a tall order. So I was really satisfied, of course, when I pulled it off. So
That's cool. I've been doing that a little more, like adding those sort of micro scenes from movies or film or whatever.
it's a cool interplay with the
Yeah.
portrait. you
It
know
is
what I
really
mean?
neat.
Yeah.
And every time I offer it up to somebody saying, hey, like, this is a great idea, especially if you, like, a lot of times I'll do something on the forum, a face or a person, and then you just kind of have this dead
You have this
space.
dead space, yeah.
And I'll offer that up to them, and they're like, is it going to be weird, though, putting, like, I just did a Coraline tattoo, and then under it, I did Coraline walking her cat as
Yeah.
a silhouette.
Perfect.
And he's like, isn't it going to be kind of weird having her just twice? I'm like, no, watch.
No,
and I drew it,
not
and it's like,
ever.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
It does look really, really cool.
Yeah. I did one of what was it? Wednesday Adams.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it's Wednesday, and then it's just a smaller portrait or a smaller picture of her, like in her school uniform, just holding an umbrella. So it's just they work.
You know,
and
I
it
s-
fills that void.
I suffer to some degree with short-term memory loss. It might be selective memory loss.
Probably a little both.
I think it might be, but I really actually think I may suffer with. I should get that checked out. If you asked me what I did yesterday, I couldn't tell you. Tattooing. Now, if
Thank God that you said that.
I literally can't. People say, "What'd you do yesterday?" Let me look at my calendar.
Yes.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Sometimes I'll fuck with myself and I'm like, no, you're gonna sit there and you're gonna remember, and I'll sit there and I'll be like,
Try.
oh,
I have to play back like a song.
Can't. Yeah.
I have to like start with the words and lyrics and go through it and be like,
Yeah.
"What's the name of the song?" Oh, let me sing it in my head until I get to the fucking chorus. But I can't remember the last cool tattoo that I did or anything I did last week at all. So I'm looking through my phone to see what the photos were. So bear with me. I did actually do a really. So this is one of them. I didn't post it yet because I'm gonna wait till it's done. So this is a teaser. But I did I actually don't even know. I think it's a turquoise stone. I don't know if there's an actual name for that. It's just a stone, I guess.
I think
but
turquoise, yeah.
just yeah. So it was a turquoise stone. It had like the veins and stuff going through, almost like granite. And it had these little touches of gold. I'd never done anything like that. I've done
Like a patina type look
yeah,
to it or
really
something.
worn and
Yeah.
old. It was so awesome.
Yeah.
And even though the tattoo's not done, it still looked really great. And when it's finished, I even told her we should do more of this in your sleeve. And she's like, once she saw it and it was done, yeah, 100%. So that was really cool because even today I'm still tattooing things that I've never done before, right? Even some things seem like I should have done a long time ago.
Right.
And I'm barely getting to them even now.
Yeah, I know I have those. They're
Like
like,
a-
how many of these have you done? I'm like, it's my first one actually. You know?
Yeah.
They're like, really? I'm like,
Really?
yeah, it's the first time I've done that.
Yeah, so if anybody comes to me with a Batman portrait, one day somebody's going to come to me with a damn Batman portrait. I don't know why it's taking so long, and I've been saying it for years. But please, somebody bring me a Batman portrait.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
I've been wanting to do a Michael Jordan portrait.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Michael
Yeah.
Jordan, I've done.
Have you?
I did the back of his head. It was doing a free throw,
Nice.
and it was really, really cool. But that's it. Yeah. Oh no, I've done two.
Have you?
Yeah, and you've never done any.
Mm-mm.
Interesting.
I mean, he's just an icon from when I was
Wait, have you
young.
done Batman?
I have. Yeah.
What's going
Have
on?
I done Batman more than once? I've done Batman related tattoos. Like I did the Batman symbol
Yeah.
with Batman's face in the symbol. And it was like someone threw it like a ninja star and it was stuck in the guy's arm. It was
Okay.
pretty cool. But I have done a full half sleeve of a Batman. Yeah. It was pretty cool.
Interesting. Yeah. So I've never done a Batman and want to. You've never done a Michael Jordan, but I have, but you want to.
Right.
So what's up, guys? Maybe we just got the wrong people.
Yeah.
No,
I'll take a Joker. Speaking of Batman.
I've done a few Jokers.
Have you? Yeah.
Actually, I've done quite a few Jokers. I did the last Joker movie, The Joker.
Mm-hmm.
I did that on somebody full color on the back of the leg. That was so much fun.
Oh, I bet.
That was
yeah.
so much fun.
Yeah, I want to do that one. I want to do the Joaquin Phoenix and the Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
Actually, all the Jokers are
Literally.
iconic. Yeah,
They're cool.
Jack Nicholson. Like, yeah.
Super cool. Jokers. I feel like the tattoo industry kind of has its own, kind of like the horror sort of vibe has its own monsters, right? Like you can't go anywhere without Dracula and
Right.
you know, like all these like Swamp Thing and Frankenstein, the monster technically. It's interesting because that kind of has its own thing. Like in tattooing has its own sort of little vibe where like it's especially back in the day, like if you didn't have a traditional tattoo or something rockabilly or cool or some pinup chick riding a bomb or a flaming tire or something from a motorcycle, like what the heck are you doing?
Right.
And it does have its own sort of vibe. And I think the Joker is like a huge one. Like that's such a popular thing, especially in tattooing. Like people love the Joker.
Right.
I've seen just the words tattooed on people. I've seen the smiley face. Yeah. People with it on their hand.
Yeah.
Huge.
It's just an animated face. Like,
Yeah, it's
you know?
really, really cool. Okay, let's get to the next question. This is coming also from Facebook. What does life consist of? Oh, no, that's the one I got to. Sorry. What is your take on using numbing cream before a tattoo session?
I do not like it. So I'm all for reducing pain, and I've used numbing cream on my throat, and thank God for numbing cream. But with realism, it changes the texture of the skin. So it makes it a little bit more spongy. And when I'm using my real fine needles and I'm getting into those very, very minute nuances of marks and nicks that collectively in the end really make that piece really realistic, it it punctures different. The lines drag differently, so I don't like it. Now, if you're getting a traditional tattoo or something where it's just more of a bold line and color packing, I think it's great. Some of the sprays, the numbing sprays, like I use Bactine all day long. The percentage of lidocaine in there, I feel, is pretty perfect. It's enough to reduce the redness a lot. I like to reduce the redness when I'm doing black and gray so you can see your light tones better. But it also, of course, helps the client. But I've had horrible experience with some of those lidocaine numbing sprays that have higher amounts of lidocaine in them, and the way that the tattoo healed. And I know 100% it's from that, because there was a period of time where this numbing spray came out and it probably had 5 or 6% lidocaine, and I'm like, yeah. So
high.
I did like 4 or 5 portraits, and every single one came back tore up, like just terrible heals and scabbed over.
Same.
And I had to fix every one of those, and thank God they all came out good in the end. But that process, you have to wait 4, 5, 6 months for that skin to fully heal and that new skin to come back before you can go back into it.
Right.
But I feel it's kind of like those people that have, I don't know what the condition's called, but where you can't feel pain. And it's dangerous, because if you fuck up your ankle or stub a toe, you're not aware of it and it doesn't heal right. Where I feel like that numbing spray, when the lidocaine is too highly concentrated, it puts the skin to sleep, and it doesn't allow the skin to know that it's being traumatized.
Destroyed, yeah.
And then our bodies are designed to go into certain modes of healing and dealing with the trauma that's coming there. It might be a matter of cooling the skin and all these different things that our body is doing to withstand what is going on. So I feel like that numbing spray, that lidocaine, it makes your skin not know what the fuck's going on, so it doesn't go through its normal healing stages that it needs to, and then it turns into this terrible heal. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, I use the Bactine because it has 2.5 or something like that, but never again will I use those sprays like that.
Yeah, that 5%, same way. And plus, as soon as you use it, that person's like, please, like, keep using it. And like, you're not supposed to sit there and be spraying this on an open tattoo
The whole time.
for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
But it's my take on it is really simple. Don't use it. One is, I think, to get initiated, you need to feel the pain. People have been doing it for hundreds of thousands of years, if not more.
Yeah.
I believe it's part of the process that I respect, because I think going through that is the earning part.
Sure.
And there's a lot of value in it, and knowing how to get through that. It's hard.
Sure.
Now,
yeah.
I also totally get that after years and years and years of being tattooed, you're like, dude, I'm so over feeling this. Like, I'm so over it.
That's what I was going to say, is most of my clients that use that, and even myself, the way I looked at it, it's like, okay, I have plenty of fucking tattoos. Like, I deserve to be able to
Sure.
take some pain. But most of the clients that I have that want to use it or that have used it, they're heavily tattooed.
Sure.
Like, I'm talking heavily tattooed, head, neck, everything. And it's a lot of the time, well, almost all the time, you look at someone and you're like, fuck, they got so many tattoos, they just must not hurt. The more tattoos somebody has,
Yeah.
the more they start to hurt. I have guys that I've done complete wrist suits, front, back, neck, and these last sessions, they're like, good God, I can't get through 3 hours
You
anymore.
know what, Mike, if you're watching, that's he's pretty much describing my client.
Yeah.
Over the last 5 years, I've covered him, like upper torso.
And he's
pretty
always
much.
like, what the hell? What's going on?
As
right?
it's going on, he's just turning into more and more of a little bitch.
Yep.
100%.
It happens.
Yeah, the numbing stuff definitely changes the skin. I think for portrait artists, I can't speak for anybody else. I don't know, traditionally speaking, if it's going to change it as much. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But when you're doing portraiture or realism, and somebody comes in with that, and a lot of times they'll do it because they know that I don't condone it.
So they don't want to ask.
So they'll do it before they come in,
Right.
and they're all wrapped up.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't happen too often.
Right.
And if they do it before they come in, and it's not a realistic, if it's not a person that I'm tattooing on them, it's not a portrait, then I'm probably okay with it to some extent.
Right. But you'll still educate them and
Yeah.
be like, yeah.
I'm just letting them know, hey, this is a risk, and here's the issue. And I think what you're saying about the aftercare is right, because some of the worst heels I've ever seen,
It's from, yeah.
Alyssa.
The other thing with that I forgot to mention is, most of them, they advertise that these numbing creams are effective for 2 to 4 hours or some shit like that.
Like
And
30, 40 minutes.
yeah, most of my clients will say that after 45 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes, to at the most, maybe like an hour, that it starts to wear off, and your body was so used to that numbed out pain that when it wears off, the normal pain feels elevated. So now you're in a 4 or 5 hour tattoo, and your first hour you're cruising and it's numb, and your next 3 hours are fucking hell.
Yeah, because
Like,
you
it's
haven't
just-
worked into it.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
and it just feels worse. So that to me defeats the purpose. It's kind of like a trick.
Do you think?
Ha-ha.
Do you think it's gonna get to the point where eventually, it's kind of like when people used to ask, do you think these rotary machines, or especially the pen style machines, are going to take over? And I would say anybody new getting into it, yeah, for sure. It's gonna,
Yeah.
nobody's going to pick up a coil and want to deal with that thing. You know, no way. But I think it's the same thing with numbing cream, in my opinion. I think eventually, as it gets introduced to more products that we even use on a daily for the actual tattoo, as soon as you start introducing those things, I think it will be a fairly painless experience for the
Yeah.
most part at some point. Always, like, that's going to be, I'll be that old dude who just won't stop using a certain word or terminology that's like, Grandpa, that's offensive. I'll be that dude with numbing cream. I'm not going to use it. I
Right.
won't use it on myself, and I'm not going to use it on anybody else. And it's just kind of, because I do revere a little bit of that sort of nostalgic of like, it has to hurt, right? Like the first thing people ask you, especially back in the day, but I think they still do, is, did it hurt? Which is a weird question. Like,
Yeah, fuck yeah.
did it hurt?
They all hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, they're taking it to a new level even now. I mean, you've seen it. Like, they're bringing in what is it called when you go under?
Anesthesia?
Thank you, anesthesiologist and anesthesia, and they're just putting someone out, and then you'll have 2-3 artists just jamming on this dude, and then he wakes up with a fucking back.
That's
piece.
crazy.
You know what I mean? It's insane to me.
Yeah.
And funny story. Years ago, we have a lot of medical clients, so I had somebody that wanted. That's what they did. They're anesthesiologists, and they talked about, hey, did you ever consider this? So we full on met and had a couple business meetings about introducing that service and being able to offer that, what the price would look like. And the price was reasonable, and I can see a client who's coming in for a large piece being willing to do that, to take away the pain and just sit there and get a piece done. But the problem is that it would only work for legs and arms, and for chest and some of these other difficult areas, back, he'd have to come in through the spine, which is a much more involved and dangerous way of
Very risky.
very risky. And he's got to stay there on the premises the entire time to monitor. So, and then it would be a lot more expensive. And the reality is most people, they're fine with their arms and legs. They don't need to get that
Sure.
numbed out. It's those trouble areas that you do. So we kind of figured out that it probably wouldn't be a huge market for that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's interesting because I think, again, it takes away from a little bit of the magic to me.
It does.
It just-
does.
It really does.
But not gonna lie, as an artist, I'm like, I'll have a canvas laying
Yeah.
there perfectly still, not moving and squirming, and getting to the end of it to where I'm like, bro, are you good? Can you just lay still so we can get through
Yeah.
this? You know what I mean?
I think we all have that
So-
client that you have to remind them to stay still, and they're like, I am.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
right.
no, you're
Or they're a chatterbox and they're talking and the conversation's great, but they don't
moving.
realize that their neck's moving and that's moving their shoulder, and
And then
you
they're
just-
doing this.
Right.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it's impossible. No, it happens. But I think, I don't know if it's just the way I work, but if I'm doing lines, of course, it's like, you need to stay still. Or if I'm doing like something really
Yeah.
meticulous, but if I'm just shading or I'm like building
Yeah.
in something,
All day long.
dude, I
Fine.
can be moving. Like, we could dance.
Yeah.
And I could do this. I'll stand up mid tattoo. I'll start to stand up and get adjusted and sit back down. And
Right.
it's
Right.
okay. But if I'm doing eyes or
Yeah.
something like
And
that,
I'll tell them too. Like, I'll be like, let me just get past the line work, then we're good.
Yeah.
Or we'll be past the line work and I'll be tattooing and they'll jerk or move. They'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, dude, it's fine. We're shading.
Right.
I can tattoo on a speedboat right now. It's fine.
on a speedboat. But there are some of those people though that mid tattoo, they'll just move before they even say anything. They'll just start moving and they go, "Oh, hold on one second." As they're moving, I'm like, "What?"
Right.
You might want to say that beforehand,
Right.
please. Maybe
You
next
just
time.
remind them, like, it's cool, man. It's your tattoo. So
So here's a good question that's going to be fun to hear your answer to. Do you guys have good work-life balance?
I'm getting there.
It takes I don't even know what that looks like. To be honest with you, I don't even want it to be something I'm interested in. I don't. And maybe it's a glutton for punishment, but I think with the things that I want to you're getting there. I kind of want to get more into that, but my mind just went a million miles an hour one direction, and I don't want this that I'm doing now to feel that hard or seem that big, because this is just a stepping stone.
You mean to where it requires you having to balance it?
There's no balance in sight. I don't want balance.
You're like, I'm diving and I'm treading water in my craft right now,
Yeah.
and I'm good with that. I don't need balance. I'm just enjoying.
I would say it's more like I'm like, how far back do you have to look on your work or who you or your past on anything you've accomplished? How far back do you have to look to be like kind of like cringing at that person or that skill level? If it's really far back, then you haven't been growing, right? If you don't look back at yourself 10 years from now, 5 years from now, a year from now, and kind of go, ah, like even my first videos, like, dude, before you got here, I looked at our first video together and I was just kind of skimming through it. And I would be lying if I didn't have a little bit of like a,
Right. No, I've had that plenty of times.
yeah, I was
You're
like, what am I
"Oh,
doing?
I wish I can remove that from.
But it's the process, right?
Yeah.
And I hope the same thing's true. Because if I feel that way, it's probably a good mile marker that I've done better or that I've gotten better. I've achieved something. Same with my work. I'm looking back real far and going, yep, I definitely screwed that up. But I'm also looking, maybe last year and going, so to the work-life balance question, I don't want any. I really don't. And so suffering has to happen. A deep level of it too, by the way, a level of frustration that you better get real okay with feeling real bad if you want a lot of success. I would think that that's probably just something they can't sell that to you, so they don't tell you, because they can't put that in a book and a motivational speech. It's like, it's going to feel like shit. Like,
Right.
I just heard a guy say it perfectly. He was talking about an experience he had before business, working in he was in a frat house, and he was talking about the pledges and how they used to, haze them. And that finally at the end, it was so bad. The kids were like, we're done. We're out of here. And he goes, what did you expect this to be? He goes, it was basically him saying, this is what hard feels like, guys.
Right.
And we told you it was going to be hard. And in a moment of comfort, being told it's going to be hard, you're like, I got this.
Right.
Until it gets hard.
Until it gets hard.
And I want to be in a position where the work-life balance, I don't want it. And I don't want it because I'm willing to be the person that figures out how to be a poor, homeless, dorky kid with no friends, no skills, nothing cool, no light at the end of the tunnel, no bed to sleep in, dirty clothes, just terrible.
You are a glutton for punishment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I look at it as like, send me, I'm gonna go. I want to figure it out. If I can figure this out, which has taken me a really long time, but I'm doing my best. And if I can, whatever that may look like and however far I get, I have my goals, but however, even if I just get this far now, I can look back and say, man, I really pushed, and I can't live any other way. So for me, work-life balance was actually, for me individually, it was a lie that I bought into because you should have it, or it's the goal, or
Right.
I don't want that. I don't want it. For some people, it's maybe a good thing, but
I think I agree with the principles behind what you're saying, and I agree that is absolutely necessary. For myself, it's a different perspective, and I figured it out. I learned the lesson in a different way, and I think that it was when I started late in the game, and I already had kids, I had a wife, I had a family, so the pressure was heavy for me to figure this out or find a different trade. So I worked super hard, and then I was determined to open up my own shop, and I had this plan for this business. So it was just chaotic and crazy, and all of the things that you're saying, and I grew from that. I really did. But when others get affected, and I had family members in my family life began to take a hit from that, that was a tough lesson for me to learn. And not to say that the lesson was to find the balance where both are in harmony. What I learned was to compartmentalize, and that helped me in a way to where I could grind still and focus my attention when I'm tattooing and at work, but knowing that when I go home to my family or when I am not at work, to put work down and then to focus my time and energy there. And it also helped in a way to where in the many years after that, where life did get chaotic or painful in my personal life, then your work is your oasis. Like, that's where you go for your sanity and
Sure.
for escaping from all the craziness. So I think for me it was less balance and more compartmentalizing.
Correct.
And at that point, only the person knows how much time that they feel they need to attribute to each one of these different compartments, so to speak. But there's never going to be a way where you're going to find the level of success that you want by having this harmonious balance.
No.
They're going to wash, they're going to mix, they're going to collide. There's going to be pain.
Do you think you
you're
have
gonna
to
be
make a
tired.
decision then? Like, because it sounds to me like you've had to decide, like, okay, I did it this way. Now I have to do it to get the results I actually want. I got to do it this way because, like, pouring too much time into it took away from this.
Right.
Pouring too much time into this took away from that. So if there's a balance, I guess when I think of balance, I think of it like even.
Mm-hmm.
It's balancing.
Right.
It doesn't look like that at all. It's like,
It's what balance works for that person and,
Yeah.
and for that life. Like if you don't have a family, then my balance is going to probably be heavily weighted in my tattooing and my artwork and stuff. And like I used to travel and do tattoos when I'd go to the beach and stuff, and I thought it was great. Like shit, we're gonna go to the beach for 3 days. I'll have clients meet me over there. I'll knock out a couple tattoos, pay for the trip. But by the end of those 3 days, I'm like, fuck. Like every day I wasted half my day tattooing. What am I doing? Why am I mixing these? Tattoo at home, make the money, and use that money and go on a trip and
Yeah.
go on a trip. Like spend time not tattooing and not focusing or thinking about any part of that. Like put your focus on your personal time and the family and people that deserve it at that moment. You know,
that's like regulating your internal workaholic
yeah,
is what it is.
yeah,
Because obviously we're a lot alike in that way. And I would relate to that completely. And I think a lot of people do, that you end up just staying so busy. Like, oh, I can make, like, again, our relationship professionally has turned into us having way more conversations about work and business
Mm-hmm.
and this type of thing than it has been any other thing. And to be honest with you, I cherish those relationships massively, and because I think they're really rare. I don't think that, well, I think those are more rare than your buddy who wants to have a drink on the weekend.
Right.
And not that those aren't necessary, and some people enjoy them, but I've never really enjoyed that much if it's not something productive or some means to an end. But I know what you mean about compartmentalizing. It's like, hey, this has to be separate. I got to take this hat off, and I got to be here at the beach right now.
Right.
Because if I'm not here at the beach, then I'm not even here.
yeah. You're not present.
Yeah. So I think
not
that's the balance you have to find, if any at all, is making sure. Like I try to do this if I go to the gym. I try to make sure when I'm at the gym, I'm at the gym.
Right.
I'm not all kinds of other places. If I'm with my family, which is hard, like I'll find it's like I'm looking at my phone. I get home, I'm looking at something up, I'm finishing something. My kids are talking to me. We're having fun. I'm kind of, and I know they see it where it's like dad's zombie.
Yeah.
It's not because I'm tired. I'm just not there.
Right.
And I feel it. And sometimes I recognize it every time. That's what's important to me, is that I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then when I do spend that good quality, it could be 10 minutes, 20 minutes a day, an evening, when I do spend that time with them, that it's really impactful and meaningful.
Yeah.
So if there's any balance at all, I make sure that I'm where I am.
I feel like those times too, where you're with your family and stuff, but you're distracted because you're on your phone and you're checked out. Those moments don't count. They just
No.
You can't even count those as, oh yeah, I spent time with them this night. Because if you can't remember, which you won't be able to, like if you guys go and do something and you're on your phone and you're distracted, you can't remember that memory of what you guys are doing. So it really doesn't even count. You know what I mean? So it comes to a point to where it's just you have to put that phone down.
I agree.
And you have to put your focus on that moment and those people. And that's not rocket science.
No.
There's memes all over the internet that say that in different ways.
Sure.
But it can't be said enough, I think, because we all read those, and yet we all still do it.
Yeah, that's
you know?
because there's an art to it. There's definitely a skill to it.
It's discipline. Yeah.
very much
It's
discipline.
discipline.
So-
It's difficult.
I agree. Evan, would you say that you can tell when I'm on autopilot at home?
Yeah, most of the time.
Like easy. Like you can see like this sort of, I'm assuming it seems very distracted, glazed. Like you can see me pop out and say, I love you, but then right back into it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You're
it's
in
pretty
your own
clear.
zone.
For sure. So that's what I try to make sure I don't do, is when I turn it off, I'm here in this moment.
Right.
Even if it's for an hour, whatever amount of time, even if it's just a goodbye and a good morning, like that, whatever moment that is, that that I'm really right there in that very moment. So that's always been very important to me. So the work-life balance thing, I think
that's a big load.
if you want a lot of success,
Yeah.
then you have to have a lot of time away from your family. That's a fact.
Yeah.
If you want a lot of family life, you're not going to have a lot of success.
Right.
You're not going to be successful
true.
at anything.
Yeah.
And so you have to just decide what part, like to me, I've again had to, like in the past, I thought that being present was more important than providing. Not necessarily that I would just drop the ball providing and be a stay-at-home dad or
Right.
something, but that provide what's necessary so that I could be present. And I did that when they were young, and I'm so glad I did. It was not a mistake at all. It was such a smart thing for me to have done for them, but also for me, that I was really present during that time. Didn't make a lot of money. It was very financially difficult. It was very, very taxing. And then eventually, as I got older, and I kind of knew the progression would be wean off being home so much and being involved so much and start getting into career more. And I saw this nice transition in my future, and it's exactly the route I took. Whether it was the right one or not, we're still yet to see. My kids are pretty amazing, and they're wonderful people, and they're doing very well. And I enjoy my relationship with them. I think they would say the same. Evan, don't roll your eyes at me. I'm kidding. So it's just really cool to see that natural progression into they'll need you less and you can work more.
Right.
And I didn't want to do it reversed, where when they needed me, all I did
Yeah.
was work. And now that they don't as much, and I think a lot of people find themselves in that scenario where they have to chase that, later on in life and go, I want to be there. And it's like, you
Right.
weren't.
Yeah, you weren't. Those years you don't get back.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword because you want to make money to be able to provide for them so that they don't have to go through hardship and they can go to college and they can have the cars and all that stuff. But unless you come from a wealthy family, which I definitely didn't, you have to choose. But then I guess that goes back to balance.
Sure.
Then at some point in time you have to realize, okay, I need to start transitioning and spending more time with them, because now it doesn't matter what you're able to provide because you're too separate. You know what I mean? You're separate from your family and
Yeah,
your loved ones.
it's a hard path to walk, and everybody has to definitely go their own way for sure. As I've gotten older, I've started recognizing for me how powerful, cash flow is, how powerful finances really are, and how much you become such a statistic without it. And I mean, especially kids. Look at poverty and what it's related to. Look at relationships and their ability to be stable, and money. Look at the statistics revolving around really your life's outcome and your income is pretty remarkable. Like divorce rates almost drop off completely after a person makes $1 million a year. Divorce rates almost don't exist after this.
Really?
That's insane, right?
That is.
So,
And I wouldn't have thought that.
you would have thought the opposite, because
would've
this
thought the
person's probably
opposite.
not home. Then,
Right.
woman can
Right.
just leave and take her half and say, I'm good now. But it almost drops off completely. Now, I'm sure there's not just one reason why. I'm sure it's not just the money. It has a lot to do with many things. But if you really look at that part of it, it really has a huge impact on the outcome of your life, and especially the family you raise. So I would say everybody has to walk their own path. But if I were to choose one, if I had to provide for my family or be with my family, I would definitely choose providing. And that would be a real hard sacrifice. But there's a lot of people, like I said, I grew up in construction, working in it my whole life, and my whole family did, and worked real hard. And it's a massive sacrifice that you have to make, getting up super early, getting home late, being dog tired, and barely knew the guy.
Yeah.
But was all I needed. I just needed to see what he did. I didn't need to hear his words. I didn't need him sitting down, telling me how much he cared about me.
Right.
Just need to see that man that he was.
And I think that is definitely something that resonates more with a man, with a provider, with the provider of the household and of the family. I mean, I'm speaking for myself. That's how I feel as a man. It's like it is my job to sacrifice, even if it means sacrificing my time and my joy that I would get spending time with my family and my kids. If it means me taking myself out to be able to give them a future and stuff, then I feel that's kind of my job, I mean, I don't want to. I try to balance when I can, but ultimately the bottom line is me providing and
Yeah.
it means I have to work more and be away from them less. I mean,
Right.
be away from them more. Then that's what it is.
Brody Jade's on here saying, sounds like it's more of a juggle, but for more appropriate compartments. The reason I read that is because I don't like the word juggle. And the reason why is because it sounds so haphazard, and it sounds like an accident waiting to happen. Cause that's the whole point of juggling, is when you're watching the person, you're like,
But the jugglers have mastered it.
yes,
I always look at them like,
Especially-
how the hell are you juggling those? Like, you know
it
what
is
I mean?
pretty
So,
incredible, especially
yeah.
when they make mistakes, but they weren't mistakes.
Right, and they catch them.
But I look at it as like, I say this all the time. I'll say this most likely till the day I die. There's really only 4 things a man belongs doing. There's only 4 things that exist, right? And it's your gold, it's your God, your strength, and your kingdom. Nothing else exists. And if you're working on these things every day, then you can't be doing it wrong. Now,
Right.
that doesn't mean you can't find your ways of making it all fit together harmoniously, right? Like, you're not going to spend all day on your strength and a little bit on your gold, and you're not going to spend all day on your gold and forget about your strength, because you need your body to be able to get this machine going, and your brain's part of your body. So I think it's a nice harmonious balance that isn't rocket science. It's not.
Right.
It isn't the hardest thing to figure out. But what's hard for people to understand is, like, one of the reasons I was saying earlier, I don't want work-life balance, is because for me to run optimally, I understand I need these 4 things every single day, right? So my kingdom is obvious. It's my family. It's my community. It's this. It's us.
Business.
It's people watching. Yeah,
Right.
it's my clientele. It's the people I work with. I'm building a life here. This isn't where I work.
Right.
This is my life.
Right.
This isn't where I'm doing a podcast. This is where we're living right now.
Right.
And so we're spending our
Home.
lives together.
Yeah.
And so,
You spend way more hours here than you're home.
sure.
You just do.
And so I look at that as like kingdom, right? And how to build that every day. It's super, super special, very, very important. And if they say it takes a village to raise a child, you might want to live in a village and have that, right? And then so on and so forth. I mean, some of it's obvious, like having your God or having your spirituality, having something that matters to you daily that you connect with on a deep level. I would hate to run through autopilot in life, which is so possible doing what we're doing. And a lot of people, what they're doing is so easy to get stuck on autopilot because it can be very efficient.
Right.
But then you miss it. You miss it all. So if I pay attention to these 4 things daily, like daily I pour into these things, I then, when I do, if I say I drop one and I don't work on the 2 that make the biggest difference for me is kind of remarkable, because I'm sure this would be different for everybody. But if I don't daily work on my gold, right, and if I don't work on my strength,
And the other ones can't.
dude, I feel,
Exist.
and here's what's crazy about it is I only have to work on my gold. For me, it's about 6 hours a day. Really,
Right.
that's all I have to do.
Right.
And my strength is about an hour, and I don't have to do it every day. Do
Right.
it 3-4 days a week. That's pretty minimal. Like, that's really minimal. If I
Compared
just
to-
do those
yeah.
things,
All the other hours in life, yeah.
if I just do those things, I feel really good about the day. Feel really, really good, because the rest of it comes along with it.
Right.
And so it really serves me well. So yeah, we could probably do a whole episode on work-life balance, just because, yeah, I like to say I don't have one. I don't want one. Please don't impose yours on mine. Not you in general, but just everybody.
Right.
Because that is easy for people to do, is they say, you need that time. Look, unless you have the results I want, please don't give me advice.
Yeah.
And even if you're giving me advice, fine. Thank you. Take it with a grain
Or
of
if you're
salt.
seeking it, like if that's the way you roll, but your life has just completely unraveled and is a mess, and you go to a therapist and you're seeking their advice, then they can come in here and say, okay, because you're asking me, these are the areas that I think that you might need to adjust, fix,
Sure.
eliminate. But yeah, when you're driven the way that I know that you are, the way that I am, it's hard for somebody from the outside looking in, be like, look, you just need to find balance. You
Sure.
need to not work so much. Don't work so hard.
Yeah.
You're overworking yourself.
Yeah, no, I feel that.
Am I?
I really do feel that, because then I think about all the other people who achieved great things in life, and I'm like, no, I'm not.
Right.
I'm not. What I'm trying to do, I think, is I want to be so successful with doing so little
Right.
and being able to manage so little. And I think a lot of people do forget that. What does doing hard things feel like? What does winning feel like? It feels like losing a lot. It feels like losing over and
Feels
over
like
and over
losing
and
a
over.
lot. Yeah.
And so,
That's so real.
yeah, unless you're okay with that, there's that phrase that get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Well, you can't. You have to just put yourself in uncomfortable positions where pressure exists if you want to grow. And I'm not saying you have to be like me where you're a bit of a glutton for punishment, which I am. And I totally admit, and I honestly, I like that I enjoy that part of my life. I really do. There's something
You've gotten
really
comfortable in that punishment.
Yeah,
Like,
there's
that's your
this-
comfort level. That's your comfort zone.
Yeah,
You know?
there's like this. I'm not good if I don't have a project or something to build or something to overcome or a goal in place. That's like that seems crazy. Like if I can't look at it and go, that is dangerous. And if I can't look at it and think, but I'm still going to try. And if I can't conceptually, like, if I can't envision something that I want in my future, and it be not only intimidating but so big that I'm like, I'm going to say I'm going for it, but I don't actually believe I can. And then one day I start to chip away, and then you go, whoa, dude, I would have never.
The best feeling in the world.
It is. It really is. It's wonderful, and I don't think that can come from a place of comfort and relaxation, right? Like that's necessary, right? Like you have to have those moments, but you're not a machine. You do need rest. You need those things, but even to the point of almost seem well, I think you have to seem a little crazy. I think.
Look, if you think about in history, all these people that have done these amazing things, there's most of the time, all these names out there, there's a flip side to their personal life. There's a backstory to all the greats.
Sure.
Where you're surprised to see how they struggled or they fucked this up or they were looked at by the community as some weirdo or someone that is unsuccessful, yet they've achieved this amazing invention that we all use today. Like, there's so many stories of amazing greats out there that have a backstory to their personal life and their failures and areas that I think surprise us all. But they're good because it allows us to know that they're human, and it gives us the forgiveness for ourselves to make mistakes and
Interesting.
have a little chaos in our lives.
That's interesting. It reminds me of a quote I've always liked that it maybe sounds a little like a off topic, but to me it relates to what you're saying perfectly. Is everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die to get there. Like everybody wants to go to heaven,
Right.
Like who doesn't want to do that?
Well,
Paradise.
There's a pretty big population of people now that don't.
They might not want to, but I think if they were actually given the choice and the reality hit them and there was an actual choice to make,
And it wasn't cool to be a
right,
Satanist.
then they would absolutely be like, that sucked.
Right.
Give me this. So, but nobody wants to die to get there. And I think it's the same thing with success. You have to ask yourself what you're going to willing to die. What are you going to die for? Or even a better way is what part of you are you willing to let die so that you can do this thing? Like there's a lot of stuff I have to sacrifice in my life so that I could just see my kids for a couple hours in the evening once or twice a week when I get home. There's a lot of other things I don't get to do, right? I don't get to watch TV. I don't get to sit and scroll aimlessly. I don't get to go out and party with my friends or, go on long motorcycle rides like I used to even when they were younger, right? I don't get a lot of these things because now the success that I want is going to take so much from me.
Yeah.
I have to be really, really particular. And it's so much so that sometimes if I make a mistake throughout the day or, those days where you just can't get the shit done you wanted to because this happened and this, then this.
Oh, yeah.
It's not uncommon. And then now it's 10 o'clock and I really wanted to be home by 8 to see the kids. Or I wanted to be off by this time to be able to at least have I wanted to eat dinner during daylight.
Yeah.
So sometimes I just have to do these little things where I get a piece of it, right? Like once or twice a week, like for sure I got this day for this thing,
Yeah.
or whatever, and protecting that. So that's my only balance is really comes
That's
out.
compartmentalizing.
It is,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like you're like, I'm
Compartmentalize.
forcing this day to give some time to myself.
Sure.
I'm forcing this day to spend with my kids. Like,
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder if people think I'm joking when they ask me, and I've been asked this a lot, especially on the show. What do you do that's what's your peace? What's your you time? What's your relaxation? Like, what do you do to unwind? Well, one is you're looking at it, and the other one is about 10 minutes in the shower, like 10 minutes of just super hot water alone. I've usually music playing or sometimes not if I'm like taking a shower at the gym or something.
Yeah.
And I'll just breathe. There's this technique called box
Yeah.
breathing, and I'll just box breathe for like 7, 8, 9 minutes. And that's all. And then I'm like, let's go. And I know that doesn't sound like much to people, but it is a lot for me.
sure.
It really is. And
Sure.
so I respect it. I appreciate it. And it's rock and roll.
Yeah,
So
we all find our different sanctuaries, like in different different ways. But the breathing thing's real. I do
Huge.
that a lot. Yeah, maybe not in the shower all the time, but I take deep breaths a lot, and I feel like that helps let out whatever anxiety,
Huge.
whatever you want to call it, but that heavy feeling in your chest.
Yeah, breathing is quite a treat. It's like a, I don't know how to explain it, but it's something I actually teach. I've taught so far every single apprentice that I have. Every apprentice I've ever worked with, I've taught. You're going to need to learn how to go.
Yeah.
Not just
Nice deep one. Yeah. Right.
no. It's a real conscious. Like even right now, doing that is remarkable, right? I always
Yes.
like to
It
remind
feels
everybody.
so good going out.
Everybody watching, everybody sitting here with us tonight should do the same thing. Even the people behind the camera, because this is quite a treat just to be reminded that you have access to this thing that
This
can
free
immediately
oxygen.
like just change your whole
Yeah.
your whole like aura. Like it's incredible, and you can do it. Matter of fact, one of the biggest things that ever changed my life. I always forget about this when the question comes up, so it's a good time to bring it up. Is people will often ask like, what's something in your life that you've learned that is like you wouldn't want to live without, or like what's a word or a piece of advice, or what's something that transformed your life in such a major way? Breathing. Oh, like I remember the first time I sat down and actually, I just like doing it. It's so nice. But I'd never done it intentionally my whole life.
Right.
Till I was 20. I was 27 years old.
Yeah.
27. I was sitting
Something
in my
that
living
we
room.
do every day until you eureka moment that
And it changed my life forever. I remember sitting there laughing hysterically because I remember thinking, like, I've never done this before. This
Yeah.
is insane. And it felt so good. And I could just do this whenever I want.
right.
It was just like kind of weird that so I always recommend that people do that. Especially
And there's a
when it
lot
comes
of things like that you can do for self-help or even just healing that you can get, you know what I mean, organically, that they want us to forget that. They want to
Sure.
give you a pill for everything. You know what I
Right.
mean? They want to give
Yes.
you a medication or a pill or something, when we really, there's so much that we can do ourselves that we always have been able to do.
Yeah,
We just forgot, or they just distracted away from that.
I totally agree. And that's, I think one of them is breathing for sure. 100%, especially because you could just do it anywhere, anytime,
Yep.
indoors or out, on vacation or not,
Yep.
working or not, breathe. Like
Yeah,
that breathing, huge.
Sunlight, just being outdoors sometimes, you know. Lately I've been learning a lot just about being barefoot and standing on the ground, and just the energy is just, there's something about electricity, I
Yeah.
think that our bodies interact with the earth, and there's some healing elements to that.
Very true.
And then, I mean, look at it from a scientific, biological way, like the vitamin D you're getting from the sun, like all of that is super important for our bodies.
True. Yeah, and to have it balanced, that like something that definitely you would do good to do is, and in terms of balancing, is making sure that you're daily getting doses of these things.
Right.
Like you,
Right.
you really can't live your most optimal way, trashing yourself. So
Yeah.
so you got to be exposed to these things, and it's kind of crazy that we're the kind of people in modern society that have to remind ourselves to take off our shoes and put our feet in the dirt,
Mm-hmm.
because humans in the past, that's just, they probably never had to think about like, hey John, maybe you're having a bad day because you ain't put your damn feet in
Right.
the dirt. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, no, they just were living that way, so they were connected to it, and so now we're having to literally remind ourselves even to get out in the sun.
The simplest of things, and some of those like I used to get in some trouble sometimes when I was in prison.
Yeah.
You'd go to the hole, and you'd be there for like 30 days, sometimes longer, couple months, and you get to see 1 hour of kind of sunlight. You go to this little cement little dog kennel run for an hour or whatever, and they literally toss you a ball to bounce a ball for, and then you go back to your cell, and it's fluorescent lights, they never turn off, like it just sucks. But when you come out, you're so pale, you're like your body is obviously deprived of all these nutrients, you're eating shit food in there.
Yeah.
So I don't know, there's just a different level of appreciation every time I'd come out, like, oh my God, sunlight, like freedom, air, I can breathe this air. And you know what I mean? Like it teaches you the importance of those very natural things for your body.
Yeah.
I don't need anybody to tell me, to convince me. I was pasty white, like things physically were happening with my body
Yeah.
by the time you get out. So
Yeah, that's trippy. I guess
Yeah.
that would be a interesting case study in the sense of like, what are some of the things that people in those environments have to deal with that,
Mhm.
they suffer from, because there's plenty of people today that aren't in prison that are out here living their daily lives, not getting exposed to any of this stuff.
Right.
And I guarantee you they're having a lot of these, like you said, they have a pill for not getting in the sun.
Right.
They do. I mean, they literally have pills for you. They have pills for everything.
They have pills
Treat,
for
your,
everything.
treat yourself like trash.
Yeah.
You got a pill for it.
Yep.
But I wouldn't go that route if you
Yeah.
could avoid it at all costs.
Yeah.
So, Evan, is there any comments on the feed that we should get to that you see? If not, I'll get to this one, but find one if you need to, or anything that we should get to. Somebody is asking, how's the apple cider vinegar going? Well, it's going well.
I've been doing that too.
Really?
Yeah,
Dude.
A tablespoon of apple cider vinegar.
I've never had it before.
So disgusting.
So
but-
I opened it and I was like, I'm gonna drink it, and this girl goes, no, don't do that.
They
I'm
have
like,
the pills now.
so I just drank it, and I'd never ever had it before. And don't get me, dude, I like some pretty strong whiskey, like
Yeah.
strong moonshine. Like I like it all. I took that shit and it was like, that kicked my ass. I'm like, oh, you can't just drink that,
Yeah.
idiot. But I just wanted to see what that was like to be that guy. So anyway, now I dilute it, but a tablespoon in a nice 6-ounce glass is still
Yeah.
like fire water.
Pungent.
Yeah,
Yep.
but I've been doing that. What are the benefits? Look, if you ask me what's the benefits of getting out in the sun, breathing techniques, even yoga type practices, what's the benefits of, taking apple cider vinegar and these things? I don't know, because I've never really had a whole lot of physical ailments that I've needed to cure myself from. If anything, maybe more mentally than I ever have physically. I've just always made it a point to be as active, right. as I can be. And I just had a dream my whole life as a little kid to make sure I always rode my bicycle. I just always was like, don't ever see all these people that forgot, and see how miserable they are.
Right. Out of shape and
Yeah, just keep riding your bike. And I'm
Right.
like, I'm always
keep moving. Keep moving.
So I did that, and so I don't know what the benefits are, but I can tell you this: I see a lot of people not doing any of these things, and it looks pretty miserable.
Yeah.
So just it's not a good path, and I wouldn't recommend it. So I'm very grateful, not like proud, but very grateful that I've been able to recognize at a young age and make sure I stuck with it, and also that I found things I enjoyed, like skateboarding, bike riding, hiking, those types of things, backpacking. Even running. When I was real young, I was like addicted to running, and I never ran like for school. I wasn't in track. I never did a marathon. I ran marathons, but I didn't even know I was running marathons, which is kind of cool. I would just sneak out of my house in the middle of the night and go run. And I remember one day I tracked the miles because my dad told me the town we were going to, called Canby, outside of Morgan City. And he, I hope they're not watching this. It's too late for them. So, well, I'm 40 now, so I guess it doesn't matter. But I used to sneak out the house and I would just go run. And I remember getting to this one location that we had passed a few times going to that job site. So I asked him to clock the miles just out of curiosity to see how far it was. And he probably caught on for me. It's like the kid with
Right.
the cookies on the face. I didn't
Right.
need them. Anyway,
I'm
so
just curious how many miles this
Yeah,
is.
how
like,
is it?
Somewhere
And so-
to run, how long would it take, you think?
round trip, it was almost exactly 27 miles.
Wow.
And I would do that
Wow.
in the middle of the night in 4 hours, 5 hours for fun. I would just run. And
That's
I liked it.
insane.
But anyway, I was just thankful that I always had an interest in those things and actually enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm going to sneak out at night and run a marathon.
Yeah, so glutton for punishment for sure. So how's apple cider vinegar going? It's going well. You've said you've been doing it.
Yeah.
How long?
Probably about a year and a
Okay.
half now.
Have you
Yeah.
got
I've gone
any-
through periods where I laid off of it for a few weeks and then
I heard
forgot
that's
and I
good.
get back on. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't sit here and tell you all like the physiological effects and reasons of it, but I can tell you that it's not a wives' tale or some snake oil thing. Anybody can look on the internet and immediately be able to have it explained, the different
Sure.
things. I'm sure it helps with gut and your digestive system and stuff like that. But there's a lot of other benefits as well. So don't quote me on any of that. But if anybody's interested, look it up. There's plenty of information on that stuff.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. That's what got me into it is some of those things. So next question, what makes it worth it for you fellas, and the hard work and dedication, who, what, or why? So what makes it worth it?
I guess it kind of goes back to that question, that statement, I guess, of looking back at where you came from, and I think that for me makes a lot of it worth it, and just knowing that I'm on a good course, keep doing what I'm doing, because I've come from some pretty terrible places, and not just physically places, but also emotionally, mentally, you know what I mean? that growth is a driving factor for me. Sometimes maybe it's your life raft too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like maybe that's what keeps me going, keeps me afloat. I think is
Interesting.
work, art, tattoos.
I think what keeps you going or what makes it all worth it, for me, I would look at it as really, really probably kind of what you're saying too, but it's so simple. What makes it all worth it is just having the opportunity to even do all this, like to do
True.
any of this, like
True.
just to be here right now, to do what we're doing. Like I remind myself that it's just like breathing. I also remind myself that also this is pretty cool.
Especially when you're around people that have breathing issues.
Right.
Then you really get to appreciate how impactful breathing is.
Right.
Because if you have a breathing issue, you might not be able to walk up the stairs. You might not be able to play sports. You might not be able to go hiking, go in the mountains, start doing these things, because breathing is so central to all of those.
Yeah.
And I felt like my breathing definitely got affected after COVID and all that kind of stuff. So even like I wrestled my whole life, so now I'm rolling jiu-jitsu, and fuck, man, I feel like I have a breathing issue to where there's something wrong, because after so many minutes of rolling, I feel like I'm gasping. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
And I tell myself it's just I got to get my wind up and stuff like that, but there's something a little abnormal about it. So I'm hyper aware of my wish to be able to have my old breathing back.
Okay.
You know, so
Yeah.
you know, but yeah, the deep breaths, those still are very therapeutic.
Yeah. So that's something that makes it worth it to me, is I can find the value in all those little things that I already know, like because I've done this before in my life. So to this question directly, what makes it worth it for you fellas with all the hard work and dedication? When I love to be able to accomplish something that to me on paper or even in real life seems really amazing, right? Like that's cool. You have this or that, or you've done this, or you've been able to go here, or whatever, whether it's being a good father or a business person or successful in any way. It is amazing, right? It's amazing just to be alive and to be here as a human and be sharing this planet right now with all the folks in this room and everybody watching and everybody on the planet. Really, it's pretty cool. But what's even cooler is what makes it worth it to me is you can accomplish, and if you would like to, like myself, you should accomplish all that in which you desire. You should go for it. Because the coolest part about it is all of that stuff is, it isn't it. It's not it. What's it is the simplest things in the world that you would give it all up for this one other thing. And it's usually the simplest shit. It's nothing fancy at all.
Right.
And it's just your family. It's your
Family.
home.
Yep.
You know, that's it. And
Yeah.
so that makes it 100% worth it. Without that,
Right.
I wouldn't even want to know
of
who
this
I
is,
was.
Yeah, none of this matters without
No.
family and being able to provide for my family. And I don't know. The other thing too is when you're in control of making your own way and making your own money. I mean, imagine being told you're fucking up when somebody is providing you everything. It's a shittier feeling when someone says, "Yeah, you fucked that up," when everything that you have is being given to you. But when you're told that you fucked something up, but you're making your own way and you provide and you bring your own income in, it's like, yeah, I did fuck up, but whatever. It doesn't affect you the same way. I think when you're kind of in control of your own destiny in that way.
Yeah, that's
other
cool.
than being dependent on somebody and then they tell you fucked up and you're like, fuck, I really feel like shit.
Yeah.
Like I better figure it out. Otherwise I'm not going to keep being provided for and they're going to kick me out and stop giving me money and stop paying for this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So Rome on YouTube is actually asking a question. What's some advice? This is, again, more loaded questions. We could write books about this, guys, by the way. What's some advice for an artist opening their first shop? I've been tattooing coming up on 13 years and a few weeks at other shops in and out of state. Any advice?
On opening your own shop. Yeah, there's a lot of advice.
Yeah, there's put your knee pads on. I don't mean that derogatory way, but get to work. You're gonna be humping and grinding.
Yeah.
A lot more than, and whatever you think it's gonna be. Well, I don't know. I'll let you answer that because I have my own obviously opinions, but I want you to.
Mine
go with
is
yours.
less like mechanical, do this, do that, and it's more just like more principles and theory. And I would say don't focus on money at all in the very beginning. focus on your clients, focus on your customers, focus on your brand.
Customer centric.
Yep. And with that, it's going to force you to focus on your craft and making sure you're good because you're delivering a product, a service to somebody. But I see too many shops, to be honest with you, there's a lot in Fresno, but that are money motivated from the beginning, and they will only reach a certain point because they're not caring necessarily about the artists that they hire. They're just wanting to fill chairs so they can collect that money from those artists, and they're not necessarily concerned about their clients coming back for a second tattoo. They just want to make that money in that moment. And when you think like that, you're pretty much eliminating any growth. So you're going to float and be one of those just shops where people
because
go
all
one time.
What you're explaining is all of your energy is going to have to be into not repeat, but to new customers. All of your, and that's the hardest thing to acquire is a new customer.
Yeah.
All the efforts. And if you look into business at all, literally people, one of the biggest budgets they have to spend on is their acquisition of new customers. Whether it's, there's so much to that in terms of the business sort of side of it, or the direct business side of it. But what you're saying is something I just actually, so my answer to this, Rome, if there's anything I can help you with, whether you're into reading or not, you can read it, or you can do what I did and listen to the audio version. The audio version of a book called Shut Up and Listen. It's the simplest book. It takes no time at all to go through. But if you want to just do what I did and listen to it auditorily, it was very useful because the guy who wrote it's actually the guy who narrated it as well. So anyway, find the book, Shut Up and Listen. And I will tell you right now, it's so simple and it's exactly what you're saying, but it's customer centric. Read that book and you can't lose because you're going to think about all these other things, all this other stuff, all the things beyond, right? Mm-hmm. What's necessary. And what's necessary is you and another human are going to do something together to make this happen. There's no other way. And if you suck at doing that with another human already, even at a local level, then you're not going to be better at it because a business isn't going to solve your problems. It's going to add more. So first master, I think what you're saying is perfect, but master that customer relationship and get those return customers. I would say you can gauge your professionalism and your success off of the retention and the engagement with follow-up customers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Your money's not made on that tattoo. It's on the 10th tattoo.
Yeah.
It's on their repeat business and their satisfaction to where they're excited to tell somebody else, hey, check this out. You should go check this person out, go to the shop, have pride in your shop, do things the right way. Go into debt in the beginning. There's some people that might hear that and be like, what? I never went into debt. I just saved up my money. Cool for you. But what I mean by that is do things right. Have a presentable shop, get that good location instead of that crap location that you might make it look nice on the inside, but it's a shitty location because you're saving money in the beginning. Like, I just start out right, do things right, do things.
Don't cut corners.
Don't cut corners. Don't cut corners. There's certain little areas where you can cut corners on because at the same time you want to be efficient with your money and whatever budget you're working with. But there's just a lot of areas when you're starting the business, you need to make that big impression to the community, and this is your one shot. You're going to shoot your shot on, this is who I am, and I'm opening up my business, and this is what I'm presenting to you guys. If it's like, hey, eventually I'm going to be pretty good, and this is going to be a cool shot, but right now this is what I'm working with, this little hole in the wall place, you're going to take 10 steps back before you even get started, because you're not even, I don't even think that you're that good of an artist yet for your work to carry you. When you become that artist, you can have what's called a destination location where people just seek you out for you and your craft, and you can get a hole in the wall place, a little studio, and it's just fine. And you're going to save a lot of money on overhead and stuff. But yeah, opening up a shop, you have to do it right and make it presentable and develop a brand.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that that's really overlooked because in today's social media world, it's so easy to do online. It's so easy to make it look like you've done it online, but not do it in real life.
Right.
And to miss the real life and wait for the you're expecting the Instagram post as opposed to this.
Right.
And businesses are made up of, I don't care what anybody says, businesses are made up of people. Transactions, money is all exchanged between people.
Yeah.
Likes, comments, views are all, with the exception of some small, sections of it, is all required to have human interaction, right? This is all people managing and dealing with and interacting with people. So I think it's easy to forget that because you see the tattoo, you see the post, you see the likes, you see the blue check mark, you see all the status, you see the plane, you see the boat, you see the money, you see all this stuff, but you don't ever think about, it's very easy to forget about, it's transactions between people, whether it's information, energy, love, money, I don't care what it is. You don't,
Right.
it's all between people. And the better you get at that, the better you get at people, then I think it really makes it very hard to lose.
Yeah.
Because you could do everything else right, which I see people do. I see people open up their establishments and they're kind of exactly what you said. And they suck at people. They thought the establishment would save them. That if
Right.
I just have this thing, this shiny thing.
And in the tattoo industry, the experience is a big part of it. There's plenty of artists that have decent tattoos. They're not amazing, but such a loyal client base because their shop is just really cool. The great music, it's just the experience of it. They're very like personable and they have this great personality. That alone will keep loyal customers. I mean, as
Sure.
far as the tattoos have to be at least mediocre or decent, but that's a big part of it. And there's plenty of artists on the flip side that do amazing work, but God, it's just a dry appointment. There's no talking. It's the environment might be dirty, dusty, whatever, just not very comfortable. And that client really doesn't want to tell someone else, hey, this is where I got my tattoo, go there. Or they don't really go back.
Sure.
They're like, yeah, it's a good tattoo, but like there's plenty of other good tattoo artists out there.
Right. People will give you a lot more opportunities if they like you, especially if they love you.
Right.
They'll give you a lot more opportunities and they'll give you a lot more grace. So become likable, become lovable, and that's very difficult. it's very hard.
Yeah, it is.
So if you can learn that, I think you'll be all right. So if there's like a couple of things I could rattle off in terms of business advice I wish someone would have told me, is your threshold for pain should be really high. Otherwise, I would just work for somebody, and I mean that wholeheartedly. Your threshold for pain should be fairly large. Actually, I think the higher the better. And also, too, it's a lot like dating. It's not really much different, whether it's between your customers, your business, or your clientele, or your workforce. It's a lot like relationships, especially the relationship between a man and a woman. If you're a man dating a woman, you know that you're not allowed to bore her. She will bounce pretty quickly. Women like excitement. They like fun. They like interest. They want to follow you. They don't want you to follow them. A business is like that. You have to treat your customers in a sense, a sort of similar way, in my opinion. That's something nobody ever taught me, that, just because you're a good person,
Right.
just because you say I deserve better, I'm sorry to tell you, but that only goes so far, right? Not very far at all, really.
Yeah.
You actually have to perform. So if you could understand a few things, I would say first read that book that I recommended. That one is actually so simple that it's silly, but it's so customer centric, and it's shut up and listen. The next one I would say would be the higher threshold for pain, the better. And other than that, everything you do and every transaction you have is going to be between you and a person. Okay, it's people. People make up businesses. People make up economies. Like, it's not a bunch of stuff. So be focused on that, and I think you could be okay. But also, the threshold for pain is so important, guys, because there's so much more to things that you just can't see, that you're going to have to develop, and you're going to go to bed feeling like you're absolutely losing a lot. And I think that is probably just the path of people who want to win. But also ask yourself why you're opening the business. Like, why are you doing
Right.
this? If you're doing this for money, then understand that I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think
No.
you just have to know that. And if you're going to do this because it's a passion project or something else, that you've got to understand it. And don't be reckless, be dangerous. Dangerous, calculated risk. Reckless is stupid and unmitigated. So don't do that. That's what I
And
would
make
say.
sure that your organizational skills are at least decent, because owning the business is so much different than working at a shop, showing up, doing a tattoo, and leaving. And it can get messy, and if you're not organized with all the different things behind the curtain that you have to maintain and keep to keep that business afloat, and to make sure that 5 years down the line you're not going to have issues with IRS, taxes, or any type of permits, health department, stuff like that, like you got to do it right.
Yeah.
And it's going
There's
to
a lot.
require some research. And some of that research might just be guest spotting at other shops and looking at what the structure of how other shops are run and what they're doing. You'll learn a lot, and I did myself. I learned from when I was working at Tower Tattoos. I kept my eyes open, and I learned some of the structure elements that they did, and I used some of those with my shop. And then when I go and guest spot at other shops, I would take little pieces from each shop that I was at that I saw that worked well, and implement it at my shop.
Yeah, so that's actually maybe another good piece of advice too. A fun topic too for me even to talk about, because I like this kind of stuff. It's obviously why we're probably into it, so it's fascinating. And even talking to you about it, what's exciting is I think we're very similar in a lot of ways, but I have two totally different, almost sort of typically what I would say is not what you would say. And I like that because it's not like I'm just talking to myself, right? Like we both have two different sort of perspectives, but maybe for similar outcomes.
I was going to say that they're different perspectives, but they still align.
Sure,
and,
they align.
and point towards the same direction,
Which is fun.
You know, yeah.
Because what I would
It's
say
necessary.
is definitely different than typically what you would say, which is usually what makes the conversations between us, for me, very interesting. So, yeah, I would say also another little bit of advice, if we could, that be a customer. That'll teach you a lot about business. Be a customer.
True.
Shop, look around, find pain points, analyze, write notes, remember how you felt when, and go into a place. I don't care what the business is. I don't care what you're buying. The next time you buy something and it was kind of, let's say, sort of subconscious, right? A sort of impulse purchase. Once that purchase is 100% finished, re-engineer this. Re-engineer this whole process. Once you make the purchase, don't interrupt the process. Just go through the process. And then when you make the purchase and it's all final and done, then I want you to re-engineer it and ask yourself, what was that like? You will learn so much, because as a customer, you're going through the built process somebody used to attract you and to catch you and to sell you. But as a customer, you're just having an experience. But as a business person, which is a totally different position for the transaction, right? You are the one thinking about how to do, to get the elicited outcome.
Yeah.
So
you're giving the
analyze it.
experience, and you're implementing several different marketing techniques and the way
Right.
that you do the transaction, the way that you interact to achieve
Yeah.
a happy customer.
A
You know what I
huge-
mean?
a
Like
huge mistake.
Successful transaction.
True. A huge mistake is treating your business like how you as a customer experience the sales process. So so maybe a better way to say it is, if you're thinking, oh man, these things sell. Oh man, this works. Oh, you can make $200 an hour. This person,
Right.
you're making a huge mistake if you're thinking like this. You're thinking from the position of a customer. You're not thinking of the position of an owner or an operator or a business person at all. You
Right.
got to think totally differently. So,
And saying that reminded me to throw this out there at
Rome.
was it Rome? Yeah. In the tattoo industry, doesn't matter how much you make, you need to start thinking about putting money away, a savings for your retirement, because we don't have 401ks,
Sure.
our medical isn't paid, and there's going to come a time where your body breaks down and you're not able to tattoo, and it's going to be a huge culture shock when income completely stops. And you're either going to have to figure something else out or realize right away that your lifestyle is about to change. So
Yeah.
it's super important. In the beginning, maybe not so much, but at some point, you need to start thinking about putting money aside for your retirement.
Yeah. See, there's so much we could
There's so much. Yeah.
go into, because I would even love to say, like, in terms of there's so much of it, but like, don't look at money as anything other than oxygen for your business, and stop taking it as you got the money and start taking it as the business got the money. Business got paid.
Right.
You did not make $200. Your business made $200,
Right.
and it wasn't $200 in an hour. You worked for the hour, got the money, but the amount of time you can't.
There's
do the
overhead.
accounting.
Yeah, there's so much overhead.
Yeah, so you
There's-
can't think like that, and I think what that basically means is, if you're thinking too small, I think it's a huge mistake. I think thinking small is a mistake, and it's so imagine you go to the gym or you get into a relationship and your fitness is there. You finally get the fitness that you wanted. You feel good, and you have this relationship and it's all good, You finally get this person. You're happy. You went on dinner date. It was great. You slept together tonight. It was awesome. And you just quit now. You got it. It's just done. You're just going to keep it forever.
Right.
You have to maintain this shit.
It's all going to go away if you do
And if
that.
you just maintain it as you get older and as things progress, right? The honeymoon stage is over. Your newbie gains are gone. You have to work harder and smarter. You actually have to be more efficient at this point just to maintain. But if you want to grow, you got to look crazy to people. You got to sound insane, and people have to look at you and shake their head and go, I don't know. And if you're not willing to do that, that's the whole threshold for paying part. So anyway, we could beat this horse forever again too, but maybe a whole episode would be directed to that question for sure, because that's a big deal.
That's a big one,
Yeah. So Rome, I appreciate it too. Thanks for the questions. Amanda, thanks for being on here. Brody, see you guys. Landy, I see you. The OG crew, some of you, if you're still sticking with us this late in the hour, we're going to get to a couple more questions before we end this. Greg, I really appreciate you being here too.
Yeah,
man,
for
'cause
sure.
This is awesome.
You know, before we leave, I want to throw a curveball out here. Kind of a controversial subject, but there's a reason why I want to throw it out there. Prior to COVID, I had 3 shops that are doing very well, and then when that happened, it completely changed the landscape, and that impacted my businesses, ultimately in a good way because it gave me a lot of personal time. But regardless if people want to believe this or whatever, very, very soon, from what I understand, COVID, lockdowns, masks, all that stuff's coming back.
Sure.
Very soon. I'd rather people be able just to dunk on me a month from now and say that never happened, but from what I hear, it's going to be happening very fast. Mid-September, we're going to start seeing a lot of these mandates start up on a federal level, and then it's going to trickle down, and the objective is for us to be completely shut down again by December. So having said that, I don't really care to talk about what side of the aisle that you're on or what your perspective is on that. The reality is it affects all of us, and it impacts all of us, and it did impact a lot of people in a very, very detrimental way this first time. And all the other tattoo shops out there, all the other tattoo artists out there, I'd like to challenge people to not comply, to not shut down your fucking shops, because I think that it's an important thing for us to take a stand. And all I can do is kind of do it from my industry level and put it out there. But I think for a community, Fresno, Clovis, Madera, any of these, Hanford, Visalia, I think it's important that we band together and not be told that we can't make money and provide for our families, not be told that we have to send our artist home and them not be able to feed their families. I think it's important that we continue to tattoo and we continue to let our clients know and our the community know that we're still tattooing, we're still working, and you can come get a tattoo.
Yeah.
If that means going off grid, if that means doing those things, that civil disobedience, then do it.
Yeah.
Fuck it. Like that's the page I'm on right now, and I just feel like if we all band together, I feel that's the right thing to do. I feel that was more of a debate prior to the first pandemic, and when we were all just kind of figuring out what the hell this is. Confused. But so much information is out there. Again, you guys can believe what you want from the first one, but there's so much information that has damaged so many people, so many businesses, particularly small businesses, that this time around, I think it's time to be smart and stand up for ourselves and stand up for our businesses and stand up for our families in
I
that
totally
way.
agree. I'm glad you said that, because
yeah.
that's a good point and a good distinction to make, that when these come around, and even during the first round of this, I knew that this was just a precursor.
Yeah.
And when they said a month, I'm like, this is going to be a
And
while.
I shut down. I shut down my businesses. I shut down all 3 of them for the many months that they had us shut down. And then when it's time to reopen, they want us to jump through these fucking hoops and do all this kind of stuff. And then you invest in the things that you got to do to reopen. And I reopened one shop at a time and stuff. And then they're like, just kidding, shut back down. And at that point, the second time they told us to shut down, I was like, nope, not doing it. I even let the health department know. I was like, not going to shut down. That's my choice. And what is that going to look like? And they're actually pretty cool. They were like, well, okay, we're not going to go out and try to find you, but if we hear it, if it's reported to us, then what our protocol is, that we will tell you to shut down. If you don't, then we report it. Then the state will come and do their thing. So I just got educated on it, but I let them know that I'm choosing not to. That way, if I got into a court situation later, it wasn't like I was hiding and doing something wrong. It was just I was making a stand on
Right.
what I felt was right. But I think that everybody should do that.
I
do.
agree. I think we should have done that already.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to make that point that we should have done that years ago, right?
Right.
If there's
And-
one thing that really hit me was especially going through the experience of 9/11 and seeing the way that we came together and
Yeah.
the way that our country stood. And I mean, obviously, totally different situation, but a hardship nonetheless, right?
Yeah.
This, I would say, was in some ways, in its own right, not comparing it, but it's very devastating, right? It was a very monumental time in our lives,
Right.
this last couple of years during the shutdowns. And the thing is, the obedience and the compliance
Right.
was not just disheartening, but for the first time I saw what our country actually had been turning into since we've gotten soft,
Right.
since we've gotten weak, since we've gotten keyboard steering wheel warriors, since we've gotten to you can't
Right.
call people fat and save their lives. Instead, you have to be nice to them, make them feel good, and be like, "Oh,
Right.
diabetes is okay, and you're gonna be just as happy, Sally. Sorry."
Yeah.
But we've changed completely, right? And some people get offended now, and it's like, dude, when we grew up, being offended was just part of your daily life. You didn't even bring
Yeah.
it up. You're like, "Oh, I got offended." It's like stubbing my toe. That happens. Who cares? But now it's the utmost importance. Oh, you have to protect people's feelings at every cost, no matter what, even if you're saying truth.
Yeah.
And I just saw that.
It's all a bunch of bullshit. You got to be a fucking good person.
Yeah.
You got to be a respectful, good person and treat people well. Treat people right.
Yeah.
And your sincerity and who you are will shine more than one slip of a fucking word
Sure.
or a joke that you thought was funny but they didn't think was funny.
You're gonna have to give people a
just,
little bit more room.
yeah,
wiggle room
don't
to
be a
real.
shitty person. Be a good person. Have good intentions. Don't have malicious intentions. But it's real. It's they're gonna try, and I feel like there's no savior. There's
Yeah.
no president or any person that's gonna. We're gonna save ourselves, and all of us coming together and just saying fuck no,
Dude, when our
no.
president's saying it's not about freedom,
Yeah.
it's about safety.
Right.
Dude, how we all just still stayed home. That's
Yeah.
my whole point is.
Or
I-
wear those fucking masks.
Man.
Like that was more of a symbol of compliance than anything.
That's
Like,
all it was.
A
See
piece of
how
paper
we-
over your face, and for them to allow cloths and all that kind of stuff, that spoke so much higher of it was really a symbol of compliance.
Yeah.
We all know the cloth over the face doesn't work, nor does the paper mask, but as long as you have it, you can come in here and you can eat.
Right. As long as you
can-
comply.
Yeah, as long as you comply.
It's not about efficacy.
yeah.
It's about compliance.
Yeah, and a lot of that is clear now looking back and seeing all the carnage and the pain and the deaths and the injuries and all the stuff that's come from it. And again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but what I'm saying is it's coming.
Yeah.
At least they're going to try. And
So what do we do?
I am going to continue to work. You guys might even see me on the news or in jail. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to continue to work. And if that ever ends up happening to me, then that was worth the stand that I made and the statement that I made.
Why is it so important for you to work? What's yours?
Because I don't want to have government agencies control my ability to make the choices that I want to choose to protect and take care of my family. And when I say work is how we make money. It's our income.
Right.
So our income is what? It's our livelihood. And our livelihood is those that are people that are under us that we provide for. So I feel ultimately it's my choice to do. Now, if there's issues of safety and okay, I'm not really getting into that. There's some legitimate reasons, obviously, for a lot of rules that have to be followed, and a lot of that structure is an example of just the health department and
Sure.
what rules we got to follow. But I'm talking about being forced to stay at home and shut down our businesses and watch them. I went into debt about $40,000 and was told that don't worry, this PPP loan, and in my mind I was like, there's no way I'm having to pay my bills still, pay the rent in all these shops, and that I can't make the money, and it's just going to be this debt that I'm going to get stuck with. But sure the fuck was.
Sure.
So I don't know. It's a little more personal for me because it hit me in that way. So I don't know. You guys do what you want, but I really feel that it's important that we stand up, business owners.
Sure.
Tattoo. And it's not just the tattoo artists, but anybody in these service industries that are deemed as
Essential.
non-essential.
Dude, that was
like,
the worst.
Yeah, it's
word.
such an insult. Like it's
Huge.
such an insult. So, anyways,
I think
that's my thing.
I think that's a good subject to touch on, because that's actually the first show we did was during the lockdowns, and we did it
Right.
remotely. And we said our piece a little bit what we thought even then, which I'm glad we kind of documented. And what's nice to have this, because I stand by my word as well, and I totally agree with what you're saying, which is nice to see in the future. We can look back and say, see, we meant it.
Yeah.
But I do think it's important, because I always like to make it very clear. Is like, what can you do, right? Because really what it is just, what can you do? Like when everybody's, when they give you all these crazy rules, like insane rules, actually, like absolutely insane, close outside, but inside is open. Like liquor stores are open, but like gyms are closed. And you think this is about health and safety.
Yeah.
Anybody who bought into that, there's no hope for you at this point.
Right.
But for
Right.
us that see it, I think it's our duty. So what you're saying, and we've talked about this before, that it's our position to make sure, like the essential argument was, to me, so demoralizing for people.
Yeah.
To think that there's somebody who is or isn't more essential. And it gave people this high horse to sit on and go, essential. They were so excited to put that Instagram post
Right.
on, or a Facebook,
Right.
filter. But it'll be interesting this time, or even just in the coming future, because it's not just about shutdowns. I think it's about us as Americans in general, and the way that we've been acting, the
Yeah.
way we've been compliant, the way we've been just sold so much garbage to live such trash lives. And, would you expect taking in so much garbage into your brain, into your mouth, all
Right.
day long, and you thought you weren't going to turn into trash? It's ridiculous. So we got to
And
be a little more responsible.
Ultimately, too, I think I would feel different if I felt that the people that are making these choices, or making these mandates and stuff, give a fuck about our well-being. But they don't,
No.
and they've made that clear. And we see how they're treating this Maui situation and all this other stuff. They don't give a fuck about our interests and stuff. So
I don't think they ever have.
No,
it's not
so
their position to do so.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna sit there and comply with that. And I'm not saying necessarily go underground. There might be a point where that has to happen, but in the beginning, like I'm not gonna hide from it. My doors will be open. My open sign will still be there, and I will wait until the day comes where they come in and shut me down. Then at that point, then I'll look towards whatever alternate options I'm gonna choose to do to, again, continue to work. But that's what I feel that we all should do. And I think that, right now, a lot of people that are hearing that this pandemic thing's happening again are probably like, yeah, so many more people are awake now and they're not going to put up with that. That may be true, but that also concerns me a little bit, because if what I think is going to happen is there's going to be a lot more resistance this time, the people at top are going to come down and do some bullshit. Like they've shown that they will go to extreme measures. And so we just have to kind of be prepared for a potential like powder keg situation.
Yeah.
But, whatever that means to anybody, like in terms of being prepared.
Yeah.
But I just think that we need to band together as tattoo artists.
And I do agree. And I think something that people can take away from that as well is a lot of personal responsibility that is, upon you in terms of that scenario, like how to prepare for winter. You don't chop firewood down in winter months. You do it, you do it all year,
Right,
and
right.
collect it for the
Let
season.
it dry so it's ready, yeah.
You don't use it this year, right?
Yeah.
So that's not good. You got to prepare. So understand that there's seasons, not just yearly seasons. There's economic seasons. There's weekly, daily. There's cycles, right? That you have to understand and to weather. As a business person, it's very responsible for you to understand. Just like in the stock market, there's bear runs, there's bull runs. Just like in the seasons, there's winter and there's summer, there's spring, there's fall. There's these ebbs and flows. And as a business person, you cannot blame the economic ups, downs, and predictability. The level of predictability economically is like you can see this thing, working historically and all the way current. It's nothing new, right? That these things happen. Now, what they label it, whether it's a shutdown or whether it's a banking collapse or whether it's the housing market, or it doesn't really matter what it is. These things happen. So to
Right.
not be prepared ahead of time
Be prepared,
economically,
be responsible.
be responsible so that it doesn't defeat you, because small businesses and people like us being able to do what we do, not only, I'm not going to sit here and say tattoo artists are, you know, just as important as a doctor or a nurse or make any comparison. But what I will say is, for you to be able to engage in acting freely, right? Which is what our country stands for more than any other country. You can't let that go. You have to, and that comes at a price and a cost.
Right, it does.
You don't just get to say, oh, the shutdown's happened and I lost my business. You weren't operating as a business.
Right.
You were catching, like, economically, I see this cup being overfilled and frothing over, and so many people building their business off the froth. They didn't actually have to build a business. They just had to put the cup next to the overfloweth, and you don't do that.
Catch that,
Yeah, and if you do that, start to bank some, like you talked about with retirement, you talked about with taxes and business structure, but don't be irresponsible. You need more responsible, dedicated, hardworking people that do it right, and not just right, but as best as they know they can, and put their hard work into it. Be smart about it, be diligent, and don't lose your business, not just because of COVID, but because of just you being an idiot.
Right.
You know, don't do that. It's our responsibility to not do that. Like, I know a lot of people who lost it and just loved being able to say, I put everything into this, or this was my life and it just went to shit. I'm like, I saw the way you were operating. I saw this. You didn't have
I've
a
seen
business.
that too many times.
Yeah. So don't do that. That's kind of like what Rome was asking earlier about running a business. It's like, you really have to be, like, to your point, is you have to be really disciplined. So don't do it. So next time something like that happens, because it's inevitable, things like this happen to some degree. It's really cool to have people like me and you, or even many of other people as well, that can voice those opinions, even a platform like this, and people that get to listen. Just to know they're not alone is always a big deal.
Right.
But just to be able to say it and to really mean it, like, man, it was very depressing to see how many people complied. The world shut down, man. Everybody went quiet and went home. And I saw out my front doors, out of my shop, all the glass doors, was like a window to the world of compliance, of nothingness.
And there's cities that still are recovering or done.
Yeah,
they're
they're
not
gone.
anything. They're ghost towns. Like, there's just so much that has been impacted from that, and we just need to learn and not let that happen.
Cool.
Again.
So it's good that we have the opportunity to share stuff like this too, and for you guys to have your input and to be part of this. Even just, this program's not here to change the world, but to connect with you guys and to give us a platform to be able to share our ideas and kind of expand on who we are and connect with our audience in a little more of a personal way that we don't always get to, considering we're always busy and everybody's got a life to live. So this makes it really a cool environment for us, a very impactful environment to come together and to be able to share these kinds of ideas, even if it's, like, again, I could never say what the topic of the show is going to be. It could be anything, but this always, I think, is really where the birth of it is, right? It's not about tearing things down, or, like the girls in the shop always say, we should make a shirt that says "Tear down stations, not people." So cleaning up stations, don't, whatever. It's just kind of funny. So we're going to make shop shirts that say "Tear down stations, not people." But I think that that's what we can do here too. It's not about tearing people down. And there's people on opposite sides of the fence, like you had pointed out, and some people are just here to do that. That's fine. We got to mow them over. We just got to absolutely just just look at it as from a perspective of, like, we have an opportunity to do really well economically when things are really good, and to save, to prepare for winter when it comes, because it's coming, so that you can stay alive through the next year. You have a duty, especially if you're a business owner, if you're a family, if you're a man providing for your family, if you're a woman taking care of your kids, and if you're someone out there as a parent doing it solo, we have a duty to stay alive, not just physically, spiritually, emotionally, economically. So do your due diligence. Stop being an idiot, and let's keep this rolling. Like that would be cool to see, especially during the lockdowns. I'm on your team with that one, so that's cool. Oh, guys, we have so many more questions. I know we didn't get to half of it, but I can't keep going all night, and I know Greg's got a lot to do. He's got to roll in the morning.
6 a.m.
Yep. So he's got to
my
roll.
God.
So we're gonna let him off here. I'm going to go through some of the comments, guys, and read some of them. If there's anything I can address next show, I'll do my best to do that. Even some of the questions I didn't get to tonight. Greg, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure.
This has been amazing. Guys, thanks so much for being in the comments and getting spicy. And I see a lot of paragraphs written, which is awesome. I wish I could get to all of them. But either way, I really appreciate you guys. So thanks so much for being on here and supporting this Artistic Freedom episode 64 with Greg Sumii, Joshua Ray Farmer, and we're out.
Peace.
See ya.